Round 5 of the Michelin Le Mans Cup for 2019 brings us to Belgium. We're just 40 minutes drive east of Liège, get my directions right, and it's a beautiful day here in the Ardennes Forest. Welcome to Spa-Francorchamps. Can't really wax lyrical enough about this place. They've been racing here since 1921, and just a few years ago an additional 6th round was added to the European Le Mans Series campaign to bring them to Belgium. Temperatures here on the track 29 degrees Celsius, ambient a very comfortable 23 degrees Celsius, and virtually zero chance of rain today. Could be interesting if a weather system moves in tomorrow though, right in time for a 12:30 start for the European Le Mans Series. But let's deal with Michelin Le Mans Cup first of all. My name's Johnny Palmer. Graham Goodwin of dailysportscar.com is here too. And these cars qualified earlier on, 2 lots of 15-minute sessions, and actually the way that the grid forms up is that there's some overlap between the LMP3s and the GT3, so much so that the pole sitter in GT3 will start 11th overall.
Good afternoon everybody from what Johnny says a glorious Spa-Francorchamps this weekend, and you're absolutely right, 11th place start for I think it will be Fabien Laverne that will take the start, and the number 71 Music Racing Ferrari. That's after a cracking display in qualifying from that car. 14th on the grid is the next of the GT3 runners. That'll be the Kessel Racing car, Sergio Piazzolla. It'll be aboard that car. They are the 2 cars in title contention. But what we've got, Johnny Palmer, is 10 GT3 cars, 14 it's 18, isn't it? It's 18 LMP3 cars. Again, a great mixed grid in these conditions. It's going to be about speed, it's going to be about consistency, it's going to be about that fantastic mix between who's got the best AM driver, who's got the best pro driver, who can turn the cars around in the pits with no errors, and it's going to be another race to the front. For me, the way that this season is actually developing, it's about the way the LMP3 teams in particular are unlocking that code of how you get the very best out of an LMP3 package. DKR Engineering once again have produced a fantastic package season, but there's beginning to snap at there. That's what I'll be looking for later today.
So this race due to start at 5 to the hour. It'll be 3:55 local time here in Belgium. And yes, 2 driver lineups for everybody. Within your duo, you must have a bronze rated driver. The FIA, of course, grade drivers bronze, silver, gold or platinum. And there are 1 or 2 golds sprinkled through the field, but the compulsory driver that must be part of the lineup is this bronze rated driver who does the qualifying. It doesn't matter whether they start the race, they could do the second stint effectively. We have seen that utilised by 1 or 2 teams through the years of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, but starting drivers are in. It'll be François Kerman to start the DKR Engineering Norma from the front row, and Eric Trouillet, who put in a really good qualifying time late on in the session to come fairly close to taking pole position. Just needed those extra 4 or 5 tenths in the end. But it'll be Kerman and Trouillet on the front row to represent DKR Engineering, who have been the only winners in the LMP3 category over the last 2 seasons, alongside the Graf team of France. And both of their cars actually are there on the front 2 rows. The number 9 will start second. The 39 car of Adrian Schiller will start from 3rd position. This fabulous venue, 7 kilometres in length, and therefore extra time has been bolted onto 1 or 2 of the qualifying sessions. We're obviously going to do the fewest amount of laps for a 2-hour race than compared to other circuits that we've been to. Paul Ricard at the start of the year, Monza the 2nd race. Then there was the 2-part round 3 at the Road to Le Mans event, with a Thursday afternoon race at Circuit de la Sarthe, and then a Saturday morning affair as well for these LMP3 and GT3s. Then we moved on to Barcelona for a Saturday race in Spain. We're here in Spa for the 5th round, and the season will come to a close at the end of October at Portimao on the Algarve. So a great way to finish the season. And an intriguing dice expected between the 2 cars that start effectively 1st and 2nd in GT3, but it'll be 11th and 14th when you mix in the LMP3s. Fabien Laverne to start the championship leader, Music Racing, number 71. And we just caught a glimpse of Sergio Piazzolla, former champions in the GT3 category. Kessel Racing of Switzerland to start their number 8 car from 14th.
Yep, just 7 points between those two before the start of qualifying. Now 8 points between the two. Big points gap back to the cars behind. They are effectively requiring there to be, well, problems of terminal nature in this race for the two leading cars in GT3 to keep their championship hopes and aspirations alive. But yeah, it's going to be a big dice between the top two in GT3. Big dice is my guess between the top 5 or 6 at very least in LMP3 and various sections through this race. Great shot there that shows you just how bright the sunshine is. Still a breeze though, coming from behind the cars on the start-finish straight. Whether or not that's going to give them very much by way of assistance, it'll be interesting to find out. It'll be interesting too to find out what the cockpit temperature is going to be like. It's not high ambient temperatures, but with direct sunlight, these things do heat up pretty quickly, and particularly some of the non-professional drivers, I think, are going to find an hour in these LMP3 cars, in particular, Johnny Palmer, quite a test of endurance.
And you don't get a lot of rest around here. Okay, there is the Kenmore Straight, which gives you an opportunity to look at the dashboard, look at the dials, check that everything is running well, then pick out your braking point at the top of the hill and into Les Combes. But after that, I mean, it's so busy. A chance to have some time off like that, gentlemen? Probably not. The run towards Blanchimont requires absolute attention. And then the chicane, which of course used to be a bus stop in 20 years ago probably now, where it used to go left, right and then right, left. It's now a sort of straight chicane, but still labelled the bus stop to rekindle those days. Thumbs up from Fabien Levergne, who's at the wheel of the number 71 Ferrari, sitting there on the 6th row.
Garrett Grist on the grid, walking down to the United car. Two United Autosport cars here in the Michelin Le Mans Cup this weekend, missing the 24 car. We said the qualifying show, if you're watching. Mike Gouache do get healed up soon after that horrible shunt suffered at Silverstone. One of those two cars is missing. Also missing the RLR car. Christian Olsen choosing to concentrate on his ELMS efforts for the remainder of this season. It's the Motorsport 98 car of Eric de Doncker. Very easy to spot, the bright orange and grey. That is Eric de Doncker at the wheel of his car. That car will start in 10th position. Last car ahead of the first of the GT3 cars. Free entry here, by the way, for the Michelin Le Mans Cup and ELMS this weekend, including the grid walk.
Is that right?
That's right.
Because often there's an extra €10 to visit the paddock and to get out onto the grid. But yeah, accessibility is so impressive. If you've not been to an ELMS race meeting, then I would certainly urge you a visit to Portimao. Or if not, there is a new calendar now out for the 2020 season. That was announced yesterday with a slight tweak in that Paul Ricard and Barcelona will trade places on the calendar and will start in Spain, with Paul Ricard's visit coming later on in the year in July.
Quick shot of the number 74 Cool Racing car, and as we saw the shot through the car, Nico Lapierre, very much a part of that effort. Duncan Tappy from Milan Racing, good to see them back after missing Barcelona after the horrifying shunt, absolutely innocent of it from Mikey Benham, wrote off the car. It's given them a bit of a struggle in their title aspirations. It's a new car for them, provided here, and Mikey was pretty quick with that. AT Racing, and the gentleman in the black amongst the two is Alexander Talkanitsa Jr. His father, I'm sure, will be starting the race. There he is to the left-hand side. You can tell the difference between the two of them. One's younger and one's older and has a moustache.
I was going to say, yeah, the moustache gives it away. The two Belarusians, although they're based in Vienna nowadays.
Means nothing to me.
That's the AT, by the way, of AT Racing, Alexander Talkanitsa. And we've seen them in Ferraris in the past. Now more regularly, though, in the prototype category, LMP3. Wonder what they got planned for next year when the influx of new LMP3s. Well, now, will that infiltrate Michelin Le Mans Cup as well as the ELMS?
I believe it does.
Okay.
Certainly in terms of some of the buying choices have already been advised. Here's the number 11 Racing Experience car, by the way. Cracking display in qualifying by Nico Melin. Was right up at the sharp end for some time in the car that we saw Charlie Martin start the season with, alongside one or other of the Hauser brothers. Very much a family affair racing experience, and an astonishing array of Luxembourg talent in the Michelin Le Mans Cup this year.
Well, actually, previous years as well, because LMP3 winners have only ever been from Luxembourg, i.e. DKR Engineering, winning in 2017 and 2018 at LMP3 level. We've had slightly more nations take victory in the GT3 category.
I think that was David Drew, wasn't it, talking to the Graf Racing guys, real team, on pole in tomorrow's LMP3 class, and very much linked in with the Graf Racing crews. Number 5 car, Tiotto, somewhat, how can you put it really, up and down qualifying in the mix, but a couple of mistakes cost him dear.
Yeah.
At times looked like it could end up being a 1-2 for DKR Engineering. That didn't come to pass, and it was Graf Racing right at the death of the session that just shuffled Mikey Benham down a couple of places. Beginning to see that grid clear, Johnny.
We are, because the time ticking around to, well, just got quarter to the hour. The race due to start at 5 to the hour, but obviously the cars have to leave the grid and get ready for a rolling start, 2x2 formation, heading up towards the bus stop chicane and then across the start-finish line. They will be unleashed as they come across the line, though, in front of the Grand Prix pit. So La Source, therefore, will be the first corner, to my knowledge. Now, sometimes endurance races like the Spa 24 Hours are released actually on the downhill stretch to Eau Rouge, but I reckon with the cars pitting in the Grand Prix pit, so they're working by a sort of satellite nature. All of the trolleys with the tyres on, with the quad bikes towing them, have had to be taken from the endurance pits up to the Grand Prix pit lane. And that does mean that the pit stops are slightly easier to carry out because it's a flat surface there. It being a Grade 1 circuit here, the Grand Prix pit lane has to be more or less on the level.
A lot wider.
Yeah, that's also a good point. The fast lane is reasonably wide in the endurance pits, but actually a working area on the apron, very tight indeed. And I would imagine a job to actually get fuel rigs to stay where you want them. I know that happens perfectly well in the Spa 24 Hours. But several door wedges probably to prevent things rolling away required. The 39 Graf entry, Adrian Schiller to start this car, will start from 3rd position after a great qualifying from the French squad. The French tricolour colours resplendent on the Graf car, as they so usually are. And this is the 39 then of Schiller. We will catch a glimpse of Eric Trouillet in a moment to start from 2nd position. It might have been Adrian actually that David Drew was having a quick word with, just stepping down onto the grid. Here is Eric Trouillet then. Adrien Trouillet, his son, driving partner as well. So we'll see Trouillet Jr. from about half distance. Each one of the drivers has to do a minimum of 55 minutes driving time, and that is from the start of the race to the point that you enter the pit lane for your mandatory pit stop. And as long as you do 55 minutes, it kind of doesn't matter what time what times you stop. I used to say it was a pit stop window that sat between 55 and 65 minutes, but sometimes we've seen those rules bent a little bit because a race can continue beyond the 2-hour mark. And as long as, when everything's checked at the end and your driver was at the wheel for 55 minutes, all should be fine.
That's the picture from the top of the circuit. Amazing rise and fall. It's not just ballroom dancing, you get rise and fall, you get it in motorsport too. Huge elevation here at Spa-Francorchamps. You really have to see it to believe it.
Or indeed walk it if you've got
Indeed.
the chance. Or cycle, which would, and even drive it. Some people can do that too. But yes, it's only when you get the opportunity to stop here and there and work out, oh, okay, as I stand at Les Combes, look down there and there's Speaker's Corner, because it all folds back on itself, and to work out, you know, from which corner you can see others really does add a little bit more, certainly more than the TV can portray. And yeah, if you do walk it, then you will feel the burn in the calves at the end of 7 kilometres.
Engines fire up, 1 minute board has been shown, and the leading car is ready to pull away. 30 seconds sign just about to be shown. There it goes. And very soon indeed, we'll be starting on the formation lap for penultimate round of the Michelin Le Mans Cup for this season. Titles up for grabs. Could happen here. Could.
Yep. Just 4 hours of racing to go, and potentially now 51 points left on the table, with 25 for a race win in this one, 25 obviously in Portugal, and the extra point as well for whoever bags pole position on the Saturday morning of that event. We've already given a point to DKR Engineering, and the formation lap begins now.
Remember, it is 2 hours of racing, but as regular followers of this championship will recall, as we've got Roman Ligier struggling to get away there. Keep an eye on that one. Managed to get away now. It all happens in the last 5 minutes.
Yes.
Have we actually had a race this season where we haven't had seriously major drama in the last 20 to 25 minutes?
I don't think we have, frankly. And sometimes that can be down to the race leader having a drama, or indeed cars a little further down the pack. But winning margins have not been, from memory, too great in this series so far. And that, is down to, again, 1 or 2 drivers still working out how to do this endurance thing. And I know drivers that are still working at it after 20 years of trying. So you never quite know what motorsport can throw at you next, and you just think you've been through every single scenario, and a race like this can throw something else up entirely.
Whether it's traffic, whether or not it's some kind of mechanical tyre issue, and more than once basically race control catching up with some misdemeanour from earlier in the 2 hours that comes to bear in the closing minutes. But either way, stick with this right to the checkered flag, because I guarantee you the action will not be done until that's happened and you see the guys and girls climbing onto the podium at the end of this race.
So it's another pole position for Francois Kerman and the DKR Engineering squad, car number 3, to start alongside Eric Trier, the first of the 2 Graf cars. Then it'll be Adrian Schiller, the second from that French squad, to start from 3rd position ahead of Michael Benham, who returns to the championship. Landon Racing were at Barcelona, but a very nasty looking crash affected their weekend early on, actually, during one of the free practice sessions, and it meant the car was too badly damaged to take part in the race. But Mikey Benham and Duncan Tappy returning, having lost their championship lead in Barcelona, but there is still time yet for them to gather some points back again. Car 25 starting from 4th position. Tony Wells for Nielsen Racing, the Teessider, will start from 5th position alongside Marcello Martiotto, who certainly kept qualifying entertaining for us earlier on with 1 or 2 off-track moments, but at the end of it a good time to put him 6th. Nicolas Mellin briefly was 2nd for racing experience. He finished up 7th, and we'll start on that 4th row with AT Racing's Alexander Talganic. It's Junior, the number 90 car. Maurice Smith for Cool Racing to start 9th in car 74 alongside the Motorsport 98 entry, Eric de Donker. And they, of course, are at their home race. Donker sharing with Dino Linardi in a Belgian and French combination. The first of the GT3s is Fabien Leverne's Lucich Racing Ferrari. The Swiss outfit will start from 11th position alongside Kio Racing and Alain Costa. Mark Crader in the 20 Grain Market Racing Norma to be 13th, just ahead of the second GT3 car, Kessel Racing's Ferrari, of Sergio Pianezzola.
Just noticed, by the way, and had explained something I wasn't expecting, which is the last car on the grid is the Beechlead AMR Aston Martin Andrew Howard. Didn't qualify there, the number 99 car, but there's been an engine change for that car, so as a result of that, that's what the rule book says. Andrew will start the race from the back of the field, but his pace in qualifying was such, likely to see him actually making some progress there.
Without doubt. And Andrew to start, with Ross Gunn to clamber on board later on. But yes, in the initial results charts, that 99 car was much further up. I had it in 4th position.
Correct, I think that's right.
With a 2:20.708, but effectively those times were deleted because of a brand new engine. We'll see how they get on, make sure all the screws are in the right place, and all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. And And we're about to go racing in the sunshine here at Spa-Francorchamps. Already the front two having a bit of fun and games, maybe a little bit of contact as they headed into the chicane at 50 kph or so. It's about to get a lot faster than that there with 2 hours on the clock. Round 5 of the Michelin Le Mans Cup about to get racing here at Spa. The red lights finally are extinguished now, and it is a good getaway from Francois Kerman. Eric Trouillet trying to cut across the bows of teammate Adrian Schiller, but I don't think he's going to be able to get there in time, and Schiller therefore will get into second place. Meanwhile, right in the middle of the pack, car 74 and 2 further machines getting tangled up. One of them is the 96, so 74, 96, and I'm going to have to work out which of the third of those cars was.
I think it was the Kia racing car. I think it was the 43 car was in there as well. There were 4 cars involved there.
Okay.
Hiding behind the 74, but was that both the Cool Racing cars, I think, get caught up with that one. Meantime, Mikey Benham, by the way, through to 3rd position, and Tony Wells through to 4th.
22 was delayed in all of that, which is the United Autosports car, only just leaving that source now.
Jim Maguire.
As the Motorsport 98 car of Eric de Doncker heads through Le Mans for the first time of asking. Unsurprisingly, the race start is under investigation. That's more so to check that everyone was in the correct order. But leaving La Source late on is Jim Maguire in 22, the 74 car of Maurice Smith. Fabian Laverne's got caught up in something, hasn't he? Because he's way down in 10th position in the GT3s. So what on earth has happened to the championship leader, car 71? Hugely delayed, and now with a lot of work to do to catch up with the GT3 leader, who is Sergio Pianezzola, now up to 10th place.
We should watch for that race start investigation, because coming to the line to start the race, it was not the pole position sitter ahead. I think he was as he crossed the line. That might be one of the things that they're taking a good look at, because it was the Graf racing car just edging on the outside ahead, lifted just before the line. That might be just enough to keep the forces of motor racing law and order from his gate. Let's keep an eye on this though. Great little battle, as Andrew Howard already made his way past at least 3 cars. Oh, runs wide though. That's not going to help his charge.
That's classic commentator's
curse. Wasn't it just? Sorry, Andrew.
The other car to look out for is Andrea Piccini, because he's the goal being put into the car for the starting stint for car 60. So Piccini, let's just check. Yes, he is the goal, and Claudio Schiavone qualified the car earlier on, but expect Piccini to make very quick progress here. He's right behind Christoph Ulrich, who had a spin at Bruxelles during qualifying. Late on the brakes goes Piccini, and that's a fantastic overtake for the Italian. More about position rather than speed into the bus stop chicane, and that will be 2nd place in the GT3 category. It's a puncture for the 71, so that will explain why it's lost so much ground, but surely that puncture's come from contact in the initial getaway, because very unusual to have a puncture just happen naturally this early in the race. And particularly being a front tyre as well. So has someone turned across him, or did he go for a move which didn't quite come off? But Fabian Laverne going to have to be an early pit stop, and this is a lot of ground lost.
It is indeed, and could that be the defining factor in this championship? That's a major upset for the 71 crew. Meantime, Mikey Benham hanging on to the lead 2 cars overall, as we just got a quick shot. Jim Maguire is on pit lane as well right now. But Fabian Laverne in some woe. There's the 22 car, clearly with some impact damage to the front of that car.
Yeah. Now, was it the 22 that was caught alongside the 96 Cool Racing car?
We'll see again.
Yes.
Let's watch the middle order here. So what goes wrong? I think it's all going wrong in the middle. The Kia Racing car cuts to the inside, goes inside the Kessel car. What happens here?
There was the Ferrari's got sandwiched, so that is what explains Fabian Laverne's issue.
Jim Maguire was certainly involved. The Kia Racing car was involved. What wasn't clear is who hit who.
Yes.
It seemed to me that the 74 car was actually an innocent party there.
Possibly so. Be good to see the shot from behind La Source, so looking down the direction of travel in slow motion, if possible. The initial problem down there, and then a lot of that was knock-on effect, as you quite rightly say. And that's, you know, we talk about qualifying not really being that important for a 2-hour race. What it does do is keep you out of all that trouble at the start, particularly here at La Source, which, you know, it's very sideways for Benham, and he's lost it completely. Michael Benham, who was charging up the order, he got up to 3rd position, and now he's going to have to watch everyone get those places back again. Benham starting from 4th, so he had gained 1 spot. And
came in sideways, didn't he?
That was
failed to gather it up before he got through the apex there, and I think he's rejoined after Maritiotto. He's dropped from 3rd to 7th with that mistake, Mikey Benham.
That was the law of diminishing returns, really, wasn't it? He was trying to gather the moment all the way through the right-hander, but eventually the pendulum just swung that bit too far, and he couldn't hold on to it. But thankfully, there was a gap in the traffic for him to rejoin, as you say, in 7th place, so it's still very costly. He had a moment in qualifying earlier on in the day as well, where he nearly charged into the back of Tony Wells, but I think that was more to do with Wells breaking a little bit early on a warming up lap, whereas Benham was on a qualifying lap and fully on it. However, Andrea Piccini now up to 2nd place. It's a Kessel 1-2 in GT3, and Piccini, despite being the gold, is going to have a job on his hands here to reel in Sergio Pianezzola. He's the bronze in the number 8 Kessel Racing Ferrari.
The gap right now is 9 seconds, but there are 4 P3 cars, 5 P3 cars, now 4 because he's gone past Claudio Zvanovic. It's 4 cars between the two, but 9 seconds and 4 cars separate them as Jim Maguire gets away after replacement nose being offered for the number 22 United Sports car.
2 Mercedes running together, and one of them is possibly Dexter Muller. It's the 7 car. It is Dexter Muller in the 54 for SPS Automotive Performance. So Scuderia Villorba Corsa is Roberto Pampanini in that unmistakable gold and black coloured car, and then we got behind that the other AMG GT3 of SPS Automotive Performance, and then it's a recovering Andrew Howard. So 3 front engine GTs together.
So he's passed the 3rd Mercedes AMG car, the Krypton car of Marco Zanettini. So Andrew Howard's recovered one of the places he lost at that wild moment to the outside. He's back into the top 20. He's up into 6th position and on the heels of the 2 other AMG engined cars. Remember, the Aston Martin has albeit breathed on by Aston Martin, but actually an AMG unit in that car.
That's a good point, yeah, as is the case for the GT Pro Aston Martins as well, turbocharged these days. Across the line go the race leaders in LMP3 then, and continuing to build the lead, because that last lap was nearly 2 seconds faster than Adrian Schiller, Francois Kerman. So he's continuing to impress. Another problem for Michael Benham, I'm afraid. He's now facing the concrete on the exit of La Source corner.
That's a horrible place to be as well. That might well be something we need more than a yellow flag for.
And there was a clear instruction during the driver's briefing earlier on in the week about how you recover from a moment like that, and already some penalties dished out to other drivers who rejoined in an unsafe manner. The difficulty is you've got to locate reverse. Let's find out how he ended up there, right behind Marcello Maritiotto.
He hit the back of the car. He hit the back of the DKR car.
Yeah, there was contact and another car going wide. Now, is that Piccini? Yes, it is.
That's Piccini trying just a little too hard, I'm afraid.
He's lost places as well. So, having lauded praise on Andrea Piccini's shoulders, he's down to 6th place because...
That was a very substantially slower lap, wasn't it? That was 6-7 seconds lost there.
Yeah. I don't know whether he ended up somewhere towards the Marshall's post there. I remember, was it Brennan Hartley years ago?
Went through the Marshall's post.
Basically went through in a WEC race.
In the Porsche.
In a Porsche, yes. Not Toyota. Do we have Toyota these days? Christoph Ulrich, 2nd. As a result of that moment then for Andrea Piccini, also to benefit, Roberto Pampanini now 3rd, Dexter Muller 4th, Andrew Howard is up to 5th, and the Krypton Motorsport Mercedes of Zanettini's benefited as well.
I wonder if Piccini has got a problem here.
He is losing more time.
He's lost 12 seconds in the first sector because he wouldn't have been able to get to the pits from there. That's the problem. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he's picked up a puncture.
That's certainly possible. He's going out of Speaker's corner now, by the way. Also Mercedes jostling for position, and Dexter Muller's got the place on Pampanini. So Dexter Muller with a 51 Ferrari up ahead, Christoph Ulrich. So Ulrich staying where he is, but he's about to be charged down by these 3 cars that have been hard at it ever since the red lights went out.
Meantime, while we're watching this, and as well we should, Tony Wells is catching Adrian Chilla, has been for the last couple of laps, is taking quite a chunk of time. Adrian Chilla, I think, may have a problem too, because his lap times are not what they should be at this point.
Somebody else potentially tumbling down the order. No, that's just Mikey Benham gaining places on Zanutini. Unfortunately, Benham's rejoined 15th now in the LMP3 category, but at least he's back in the race. And that looked like it might need something more severe, like a full course yellow, to enable him to get back into the race safely. But probably with a lot of help from the marshals down at La Source, he was given clear instruction to reverse and rejoin slowly and surely. The number 2 car is now being challenged for position. This is for 3rd and 4th, as Graham points out. Tony Wells ahead of Eric Trouillet, but Trouillet showing good speed up the Kenmore Straight. 2 Normas then, 3rd and 4th currently.
But they are catching the 2nd place car as well, both of them. That was nearly 3 seconds, the gap 3 laps ago. They've halved that gap through the Rouge and up through Radion.
You're definitely right about Andrea Piccini. He's slower again, taking him 90 seconds to do the middle sector, which is basically from the braking point into Lecom down to Campus Corner, the old Stavolo right-hander. Where do you brake here then, chaps? Because it's all together. Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston Martin. This is for 2nd position in the GT3 category, and I bet Sergio Pianezzola is pleased to be up the road and clear of this little lot.
And behind them, Mikey Benham is trying to make his way through, having just set the fastest first sector of the lap. I'm sure there's a fair amount of adrenaline involved there.
I think he's very revved up, having made 2 errors now, unfortunately. Of course, they are desperate to keep the point scoring going in the remaining few races. Benham to the inside of Pampanini and should be able to pick him off this time into Pouhon. As work now is taking place on Giacomo Piccini's Ferrari, I can only assume.
Yes, Piccini. It's not a puncture. There are problems at the front of that car.
And suddenly found a switch for the windscreen wiper there, I noticed, because that was swishing backwards and forwards. So Andrea Piccini limping back. All 4 Michelin tyres do indeed seem to be inflated. So a mystery at the moment for the Swiss squad. We'll find out whether that car can rejoin. It's a tale of, well, 2 very different stories at Kessel, because one of their cars leads the class and is now up as high as 9th position. The other one looking at retirement in the face at this stage.
Indeed, that of course cedes a position, and that could still be important for Fabien Laverne. Just looking at what his speed is like at the moment. Laverne in the 221s is rapidly catching the cars ahead of him.
That's, I think, the fastest lap of the race for GT3. So Laverne, no doubt about his speed now that he's got 4 inflated tyres. And not sure whether that was a pincer movement down into La Source the first time of asking, or whether he was trying to muscle his way. There's a slow car there, that's the Kia Racing car on an outlet a la Costa. And I think possibly doing the gentlemanly thing and allowing those cars through, although that's it's not right, is it?
Nowhere close to up to speed.
No.
That car involved in that Turn 1 incident, that looks to be down to me at the front left-hand side.
I would agree with you there. Meanwhile, Roberto Pampanini's dropped away from the battle for 2nd place in GT3. Mikey Benham making it still, though, a 3-car scrap. He's trying to get by these 4 position.
Correct.
They're all on the same lap. And Christoph Ulrich trying to fend off the red and black Mercedes behind him, Dexter Muller. There is Pampanini away in the distance, gold and black Mercedes. Pampanini being monstered by Andrew Howard in the Aston Martin.
As all 3 of those cars make it past what looks like a stricken Kia Racing car, mercifully out of the way of that, with the 2 GT cars also following through. Benham pulls by and away. He's back up to 16th position now. 14th in class, rather.
Out of turn 9 go the 2nd and 3rd place cars in GT3. Then there's the gap back to 4th and 5th. Just 2 laps ago, they were all locked together. It'd be nice to have a 4-car train once more, but Sergio Pianezzola showing everybody else how it's done here at Spa-Francorchamps, having taken victory in the championship last year, 2018. And this turn of fate now, which puts the 71 car way down the order because of an early puncture. I wonder whether, how long was that pit stop? for the Ferrari. It was only 53 seconds, so they haven't played a canny one there to do a longer pit stop to get that out of the way. A minute and 55 seconds is the mandatory pit stop that must be served, but you don't necessarily have to do your driver change at the same time. And we are nearly 15 minutes in to this 2-hour affair at Spa-Francorchamps, the 5th round of the season for the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Nose to tail, heading up the Kemmel Straight, and this is for still 3rd and 4th positions. Tony Wells not going to defend this time, I don't think. No, he is. Very last ditch indeed, and Eric Trouillet has to go up the curve as a result. Not sure whether Trouillet was fully alongside to make the pass, but it didn't look like a great deal of defence being offered initially by Tony Wells. Meanwhile, Dexter Muller trying to get by the Ferrari, and in the background, eagle-eyed Graham Goodwin spotted that Andrew Howard has got ahead of Roberto Pampanini. There's confirmation of it. The headlights are on for the Aston.
Absolutely, he's on a charge again. First time he's been in front of that car, but will be doing his best to keep on the grey stuff this time. Another challenge here. This is the Krypton Motorsport car, the EB Motors Porsches. They come down towards Eau Rouge, past that camera, awfully quick through there. This is the battle for 6th position, nose to tail. Porsche makes it up through Radion, not under immediate pressure. That's a move through Les Combes. Sees Tony Wells just pull out a little bit of a gap, a bit of a struggle by the way into the corner. Black and orange flag for the number 11 car meanwhile. That is the racing experience car of Nico Manat. That's the one we're looking at here. And what is that for? What damage have we done on that car, Johnny Palmer?
It's the rear left, isn't it? Is it carrying its little cheese wedge?
It is.
Yeah, towing it because there's a cable attached to that, because that's where the rear light would normally sit.
You're absolutely correct.
And it is sometimes called the legality panel, sometimes called the bullet, but it is now adrift of that car and just hanging on literally by a thread. So that car being told it must pit, and it duly does. Yeah. So hopefully that can be fixed, but of course you can't just rip that panel off and run the car without it, because it is a legal part. So they've got to work out a way now of either fitting a new one or strapping that one back into position. Always tricky. Ulrich versus Muller. This is still 2nd and 3rd in GT3. Ferrari up against Mercedes. Delicately balanced in the BOP technology and the algorithm that is employed these days in the GT3 world. Also a little further back is the Aston Martin making a break. So Andrew Howard clearly was being held up by Roberto Pampanini, and now he's the right side of the Italian. Can he start to make that a 3-way dice for 2nd position in GT3? Well,
he's closing. 2.5 seconds is the gap to look for there. We'll keep an eye on that one, but I think that's going to come down remarkably quickly, because the other two are dicing ahead. It's costing them time. It's got the racing experience team in the down on the right hand side, looking at what they can do to re-secure that legality panel. And they're taking that one away. They're going to fit the whole new unit.
It's going to take a long time. I'm sure they're well rehearsed in doing this sort of thing. Panels that are all important, as I say, enforced by the rules makers and the technical regulations that are released at the start of the year, but they're also susceptible to being torn off if you are involved in an incident. We've had all too much contact already, and this race is barely 20 minutes old. Dexter Muller wanting to be as late on the brakes as he can be at Les Combes, but still Christoph Ulrich is driving a neat and tidy race to this point, despite the relentless pressure from behind.
Ulrich, a driver that's come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of seasons of Michelin Le Mans Cup, to be certainly in contention for podium finishes.
Yep.
And having to employ good defensive tactics here. Meanwhile, Tony Wells, again, the Graf Racing car looks to the inside. Is the room there for it? Tony's not going to like that one. He tries to close the door, left it a little too late, and it's going to Graf 2-3 now.
Yes, and next question is, can those cars get closer to one another? Will Tony Wells be dragged along by the car in front as well, utilising the toe a little bit down the Kemmel Straight? But yeah, Eric Trouillet been carrying some good speed in qualifying earlier on, and that's translated well into the race now. So 2 Graf cars 2nd and 3rd. Look at this little gaggle coming into the bus stop chicane. One of them is acted a GT3 leader. We haven't seen Sergio Pianazzola a great deal in the blue with the white stripes Kessel Racing Ferrari, but he is definitely in amongst a load of GT3 of LMP3 cars, I should say. Rob Hode's right behind in the 23. Also John Schaumann in car 4.
In fact, Pianazzola just lost a position to the number 30 CD Sport car, and that is 8th position overall. He's now down to, in fact, loses 2 because Hode's as well was a move for position, so drops down to 10th position with 2 more cars. That's Schaumann and Mark Crader tucking in behind. So this is a period of time where he'd do well, to be honest with you. Let these P3 cars get out of the way and get on with his battle. His battle is against the clock and not for overall position at this stage. Had taken that car, by the way, up as high as 8th overall.
The difficulty is that the straight line speed is comparable with the Ferrari. So actually, yeah, he can do his level best in allowing them through, but when you've got your foot flat to the floor, you're actually level pegging with the LMP3s, and then it's into the corners that the prototype have the firm advantage. So it's tough in amongst that little gaggle. He doesn't want to be involved in any contact because he's nursing this very decent lead, but also not wanting to lose any time to cars behind. Bearing in mind, once the golds and the silvers take over at about half distance, it could all start to condense very nicely. Looks like maybe the 60 car is out for good.
I think so. Meantime, by the way, released from behind Tony Wells, Eric Trullier is closing the gap on the second place Graf car very rapidly indeed. Just 0.3 of a second through the last timing loop.
But it does appear that Andrea Boccini's car is out of the race. The only man to find out from is the man himself. Now with Charlie George.
Yeah, I'm down here at Kessel with Andrea. Not the way you wanted this race to go. What exactly happened with the car?
We had an issue with the power steering. It just broke. It's a shame because we had a very good start. We got from last almost, we went already P2, so everything was going well, but suddenly just locks up. It broke, so we had to stop.
And always a shame not to get to race here at fantastic Spa.
Yeah, it's a shame, especially for Claudio, my teammate, because I'll have the chance to race tomorrow in the ELMS. So I'm very disappointed, especially for him, but that's racing. We can't do much.
Bad luck.
Thank you.
So that explains the moment that Andrea had into the bus stop chicane, as the 2 Graf cars are going to go side by side here, and Adrien Trullier, or rather Eric Trullier and Adrian Schiller switch positions, and Trullier on a right old tear here, up to second place now.
Absolutely, that looked like happening in the background. We've got the Nielsen Racing car of Tony Wells under pressure, was he? No, I think that was actually a lapped car, but there's a car right on the tail of Tony Wells. We've got a black and orange flag now for the number 74 car. That is the Cool Racing car that was involved in that multi-car issue at the start of the race. Racing Experience car still having that repair. And it's going to be a drive-through penalty, meanwhile, for the 22, Jim Maguire, for causing the collision at the start of the race. So it looked like, you see again, if you have a look for the aero car, branded car in the middle of that pack, it's over to the left-hand side, just on against the pit wall up the inside, the silver-blue car, and he hits the Ferrari and then the Kia Racing car, which is then catapulted into the 74.
Yeah.
That was the way that worked. It was a sideways glance, likely the one that caused the puncture for the 71 car. There is Fabio Laverne just bailing out, and he realised there's no grip there from that corner. And then I'm afraid Jim Maguire made contact with first the Kia Racing car, which then barrelled into the 74. And that's caused problems for both of those cars. Long pit stop for the Kia car, and now the 74 car with damage to the rear that's going to require intervention for the pit crew.
And poor old Fabien Laverne attacked from, well, the right side initially, and then that forced his car into a car to his left as well. So it was a pincer movement that I think he had very little to do with, and consequently front left tyre goes down very, very quickly on the championship leading car, bear in mind. And Fabien Laverne now only in 9th position, having visited the pits, but he's going to have to come in again, A, to switch to his co-driver Mikkel Mack, and B, to do the mandatory pit stop, which has to be a minute and 55 seconds minimum.
And Laverne is about to take a position on track from John Hartshaw, but after that there's a long gap before he gets to do battle for 7th position with Marco Zanettini, almost a minute to pick up on. 25 and 20, that is Mark Crader, ceding position to the recovering Mikey Benham. 12th position overall, 11th in class.
But it was Crader who had to do a lot of wheel twiddling as he came out of the chicane and onto the main straight, with the car lacking a little bit of front grip, it looked like, but it all stemmed from a rearward moment that he had to correct. So yes, that was another place picked off by Benham as a result. There is the 71 Ferrari at Pouhon, with right behind Maurice Smith in also, no, it's not Maurice Smith, it's one of the Graf cars. So that will be car number 9, second place overall, already starting to lap GT3 cars. So Eric Treuillet trailing the race leader by 10 seconds. This is lap 11, and actually building a gap on teammate Adrian Schiller. 3.1 seconds. That overtake only happened the previous lap, didn't it? So,
yes, and at the moment Schiller is caught in traffic. I think this gap is going to expand quite radically. Does so by a further 3 seconds in the second sector. It's all traffic. So bad luck, bad timing there for Adrian Schiller, but he's now got his mirrors full of Tony Wells, who's done a rather better job in that traffic. Has pulled back a second and a half, 2 seconds. Trouble for Eric Dodonka. It's a spin for the Motorsport 98 car. That car was 7th. Will still retain 7th, but will have a much reduced gap to charging CD Sport number 30 car. It comes down to 6 seconds now.
Yeah, Chav Wolf charging hard and will be further revved up. Now, was a contact between Maratiotto. This was for position with the number 5 car. And again, not quite a full width for an LMP3 car to squeeze through. Marcello Maratiotto, though, defending relatively last minute there in the number 5 car. Contact was made at Campus Corner, and it results in a spin for the homegrown driver, Belgian Eric Dodonka, with the Motorsport 98 crew. So they're going to have to work hard again to get back up the order. And the first job is to fend off Jack Wolf in the CD Sport car. It's going to be an early stop, actually, for Marcello Maratiotto as well. Now, is that related to the incident we've just witnessed?
Must be.
So maybe damage to the floor or to the side of that car, and Maratiotto pitting from 6th position.
So the 5 car, yet again, that's a great move up the inside to grab 4th position from Alexander Talkanidze. Grabs it from Tony Wells. That was going from a long way back. Tony Wells seemed to have that covered. Yellow flags being shown, turn 13. And that is the Krypton Motorsport car off the road and unable to get traction.
That's Marco Zanettini going off on his own, it would appear, but that area I'd already spotted is incredibly dusty this weekend, with cars shortcutting the first bit of Le Fagna and bringing quite a bit of dirt and soil onto the track, and the Michelin's just scrabbling for grip.
He's nosed into the barrier, cannot get traction to pull away back from that.
Yeah, so locating reverse is one thing, but if the car's caught in the rubber belt, which protects the tyre wall, Marshall's running to Marco Zanettini's aid straight away. I would imagine he is okay in the cockpit there, because it was relatively light contact.
It was a very light contact.
But
wave yellows.
But if the front of that car's got wedged in the tyres, which it looks like it has, it's very, very tricky now. And indeed, the grass might not be offering a great deal of grip either. 74 is in. This isn't, again, for a regular pit stop, though. Maurice Smith, but that was one of the cars damaged at La Source.
That was one of the cars that was called in with black and yellow.
Okay.
Right rear damage for the 74, and I'm sure that would have been caused in that first corner. Schlunter, maybe the bullet there has just given its best. Talkanidze, by the way, is charging here. He's pulled away from Tony Wells. He's now challenging the number 39 car for 3rd position.
Jim Maguire's served a drive-through, as he was instructed to do so, and the next time, hopefully, that car visits the pits, therefore, will be for its 5-second stop and the driver change. Meanwhile, no let-up in the pace of cars as they scrape the ground at Eau Rouge and head up the very steep hill indeed. It's tough just to actually walk up that, and until you've done that, you don't fully recognise the height that is gained up over Radion. And at the end of the Camel Straight, turning point now for Adrian Schiller, with, as you say, Alexander Talkanitsa Jr. very much for company. Meanwhile, Rob Hodes now has right behind him Mikey Benham, and that is for 9th and 10th places.
It is. It's a further recovery from Mikey Benham. He's gone by the GT3 leader into 10th position. Now looking for way past Rob Hodes to get up to 9th. A minute back though from the lead.
Yeah.
After that, the gaps start to become more significant. Goes to the outside on the Kimmel Straight. In fact, there's the other car that's within reasonably easy reach. John Schauman ahead in the better placed of the pair of Cool Racing cars, number 4 car. That car a couple of seconds ahead of that battle. Double yellow now at turn 13. I wonder how they're going to deal with recovery of that car. The car's gone from where it was. No, it's just been pushed backwards by the marshals to regain the track by the look of things.
Okay, so
I think you're absolutely right. I think it was hooked up on the barrier.
Yeah, either the front wheel slightly off the ground, or the nose of the car, the bonnet stuck underneath part of the tyres. Difficult to tell from the angle we were being shown, but Marco Zanettini will have shoved it into reverse straight away and buried his right foot, but probably gone nowhere, scrabbling around on the grass there. So car 35, fingers crossed it will return to the race. Otherwise, Stefano Pizzucchi, who I think qualified the car earlier on today, 2 bronzes for the 35 this weekend. Pizzucchi's driven it therefore, but not yet in the race.
Andrew Howard closing. Dexter Muller in the number 54 AMG. This is for a podium position in GT.
And Ulrich, to be fair to him, has really provided stout defence. And it's almost as if Dexter Muller now has not much more up his sleeve. Struggling, this Mercedes, for me. And Andrew Howard might be able to pick it off very quickly indeed. Now, are those tyres that have been pushed too much? Is there a hint of a slow puncture, perhaps, for Dexter Muller? But he's given all that he can do. And now, Andrew Howard getting closer and closer in the 4th placed Beechstein-sponsored Aston.
Yeah, headlamps are on. Oh, and that's another moment. And it's again Mikey Benham. It's at the bus stop again.
So was that some contact for the 25?
No,
on
it
his
wasn't.
own.
The car's just spun away, maybe just a little bit too trigger happy. It looked like it, didn't it, on the throttle. Dusty track, and Mikey spins away a place or several again.
Had already got ahead of Rob Hodes, I note, though, and Hodes immediately gains the place back again. Dear me.
So whilst he was looking set fair to get up to 8th position, he's rejoined and is now back to 12th. It's topsy-turvy stuff, isn't it? Through comes the 2nd, 3rd, 4th place group. Lights on the Aston Martin. And very soon I think we're going to hear the ice cream van chimes, which shows he's still looking to get through. Green sleeves, Heather.
Well, is that right? This day it changes daily, I've heard. Now down towards the end of the Kemmel Straight, that might be an opportunity to overtake. Otherwise, you're probably looking at the end of the lap into the bus stop chicane, depending on where Andrew Howard can be a little quicker. But across the piece, across the 7 kilometres of a lap, clearly Howard finding his rhythm now, and I think Dexter Muller's tyres have seen better days. So the Mercedes not offering quite the speed that it had in the early portion of the race. Still running in 3rd, so a good position for it to be handed over to Yannick Mettler, who is the silver rated driver. Benham gaining a place again, as like snakes and ladders this race so far for Benham. He gains some and then loses 1 or 2. Oh, he's off the track again. Well held though, coming out of Lefagna, and that again demonstrates to me quite how dusty Lefagna has become through the course of the day. It's very warm this weekend, and that means that the grass right next to the track is incredibly dry, and if you do shortcut and venture off the curbs, off the track and off the curbs, you're going to bring quite a bit of dirt back on again, and that means that grip is at a real premium. Might go some way to explaining a bizarre LMP3 session earlier on, where Philippe Albuquerque was something like 0.7 of a second quicker than everybody else. And you're wondering when that qualifying session was going to come alive. Well, it never really did. It certainly did if you're part of the United Autosports camp, but everybody else struggling for time, and we assume grip this weekend at Spa.
Absolutely right. Tony Rolls, meanwhile, is back in the hunt with the Graf car. Adrian Schiller right feet behind through traffic again this time, and quicker in sector 1 after second gap. Andrew Howard is continuing attack. And yes, that's the gap. This for 4th position. Of course, Tony looking to do what he can to keep this car in the hunt before we get in something like 20-25 minutes to the point where the driver change will happen. Colin Wells, it will be aboard the number 2 car to take up that fight. It has got away here.
11 and a bit seconds is the gap between Francois Kerman and Eric Trouillet, by the way, but yes, it's tighter between Talkanitsa and Adrian Schiller. Let's hear from Mikkel Mack, who's Fabien Leverne's teammate at the 71, with Charlie now.
Yeah, I'm down here at Lizic Racing. It all looked like it was going so well, didn't it? You started from pole position, leading the championship, and unfortunately, it's not going quite so well now.
Yeah, it was a fairy tale gone bad. Very unlucky start for us. We will still do our best for every single point we can get now.
And of course, you have a longer pit stop as well.
Yeah, we have 29 seconds, so it's going to be really, really tough. But yeah, we do our best and trying to get the maximum points we can.
But in other good news, you've just become a dad. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I hope the rest of the race goes much better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is a slight silver lining then to the cloud that currently hovers over Lusick Racing, and of course we wish Mikkel Mack's family, new members included, the very best. An exciting time in Mikkel's life currently, but he would dearly like to be better placed in this race. As there's more drama. Oh, this is the 35, of course, recovering from its moment earlier on when it was wedged in the tyres, and car 35 still being driven by...
And again, Mikey Benham spins it out.
Late on the brakes and loses it. That's very similar to the incident that happened in qualifying for Mikey earlier on, and the car switching ends on him into the bus stop. I think he avoided contact with the car up ahead, though.
He did.
Yeah. So that was with, it was with the 39, Adrian Schiller, 4th position at the time. So it wasn't actually a move.
Yeah, that was the earlier move, and that was the yes. He's
okay.
getting dizzy, isn't he? I think if you had a dog in that cockpit, he'd be kicking it right now.
So the most recent incident was
this one
with the United car.
That was the incident for 9th position just a few moments ago. And
Either
Graham
Rob Hodes
Johnson,
or
the
Jim
team
McGuire.
manager there, with the red overalls looking like a silver-haired ribbons Barrichello. With gesticulation there showing his displeasure.
Yes.
But, yeah, it's a wild display from Mikey Benham.
Unusual as well,
yes,
for Benham,
very.
because he's normally metronomic in his consistency, and I think unfortunately you get tangled up in an early problem and then you're chasing your tail all of the time to try and recover the lost ground. And Duncan Tappy will be taking that car over at about half distance once Benham's done 55 minutes or so of driving. But this is one to forget, unfortunately, for Michael Benham, who's now receiving the black and white flag for dangerous driving standards. So, not altogether surprising. A message from race control there. Also, interestingly, the team manager, car 54, is being summoned to the race director. That's Dexter Muller's Mercedes that was following Christoph Ulrich for a long, long time, as the repair work at Krypton Motorsport can now commence, because 35 has arrived on a busy pit road this afternoon. Marco Zanettini then, with the help from the marshals, I think, at the very least instruction as to how to get out of those tyres down at Lefania safely, has limped back to the pits, and now hopefully will receive some repair work and we can get him back out in the race.
I'll say one thing in terms of the Mikey Benham stuff, which is you've got to ask the question, it's happened so often, is Mikey overdriving it? Is there a problem with that car?
Yeah.
It is a new car to the team. This is its first race with the team. Now, whilst we're signing this off as being rather adrenaline-fueled run after some disappointment early in the race, is the car carrying an issue? I don't think so, but it's always a possibility, and I'm sure Charlie will find out at some point later in the race.
Yeah, we certainly shouldn't rule that out. And the only man that can tell us is Mikey Benham himself. And we will, I'm sure, get a chance to have a word later on as Dexter Muller heads towards Blanchimont with still Andrew Howard very much in tow. That is the fight for 3rd and 4th in GT3. A Fabien Leverne update, having just heard from his teammate Mikkel Mack. Well, 7th position is where we find the Lusick Racing Ferrari. 17 seconds adrift of the next car up the road, which is the Epi Motors Porsche of Paolo Venerossi.
Two things to say about that. As we see weaving Tony Wells looking for a way through. One is, of course, he's gained a position because of the problems with the Krypton AMG. But two, when he overtook John Hartshorn, there was a 48-second gap to the car ahead. It's now down to 17. He's taken a full 30 seconds out of the EP Motors Porsche since making that move on Hartshorn.
Through curve Paul Frere goes that fight for fourth position then, with Leverne about to be lapped by both Schiller and Wells. And Leverne just driving straight off the track there. I think more in an effort to stay out of the way of this battle. He's now found himself right in the middle of the track, but sensibly gets to... Oh, but Schiller overcooks it. Now, this might be a chance for Tony Wells. Schiller clearly taking a slight advantage there. Is he going to concede the place, or just the ground that he supposedly made up by straight line in the second bit of the bus stop? Leverne wants to be out of this, ideally. He doesn't want to be involved in an LMP3 fight for 4th and 5th overall. And now Tony Wells is going to leave La Source probably about the same distance from the back of the Graf car, but certainly 1 or 2 car lengths gained there, I would have said, by Schiller.
I would have thought so. I think someone else had a bit of a moment ahead of Schiller, because when he arrived, watch where's he arrives at the bus stop. There's already smoke there before he gets to the apex. Look to the left-hand side, there's smoke already.
Yes.
So someone else has had a moment.
Maybe gone well off stage right there. Disappeared into... There is a fair bit of runoff for obvious reasons, because it's a high-speed approach into the bus stop chicane.
Tony Wells literally with his head down at the end of the Kemmel Straight, looking to close the gap. Engaging stuff from this pair for quite some time. Lead gap, by the way, 13 seconds, nearly 14 seconds, and it's almost equidistant with the second and third, with actually Tarkenit's a junior who started this race. So it's the quicker of the two drivers in the 18 racing car. So lots of cards still to play here.
Schiller went deep into Bruxelles that time around as well, where it was a much more conventional line for the car behind Tony Wells, so a little bit more time gained on the Frenchman for the Brit behind. And this is 4th and 5th, I'll remind you. Eric de Donker, a bit of a recovery drive for him in car number 98, Motorsport 98 entry, and the second best of the Ligiers. That car is 23 seconds adrift though of this duo for 4th and 5th. Still, Andrew Howard can't quite make a full impression on Dexter Muller's pace. It did look like Muller was struggling for the last few laps, but maybe that pace has stabilised now. He's still got Christoph Ulrich in his sights. So the 55 Ferrari, the all-red car, is second. Then the Mercedes, the red and black of SPS Automotive Performance. And then the Aston Martin, which takes a little bit of a look. That's more distracting tactics, I think, rather than a firm manoeuvre from Andrew Howard.
I would say I think this is the most convincing race this season in Michelin Le Mans Cup from Andrew Howard. Putting his head around a very different prospect. And he looked up the inside at Le Combe and almost made it stick. A cracking move there. Again up the inside here. That's not going to work. Trying to just harass the AMG man into a mistake, and almost worked there.
Fun to watch this, because the Aston is clearly a little bit stronger in certain areas. The Mercedes is carrying good straight line speed though, and Dexter Muller needs to be a bit cautious about track limits too, because he had all 4 wheels off the track leaving turn 9 there, the tricky left-hander, whereas Andrew Howard only the 2 wheels dropping onto the red and yellow curbing, so that's much better from a steward's point of view.
Just dropping back a little from Christoph Ulrich because of this fight. Being caught, by the way, by the recovering Otto. Some way back yet, but another 2 or 3 laps, and that will become a factor with another P3 car closing 4th position. This is how they got alongside, didn't quite get there, that was quite tight. But a good move from Andrew Howard.
Yeah, well, because he wasn't risking everything there, he was just more asking the question of Dexter Muller. If I put my car here, how are you going to react? And again, this is almost as a direct result. 2 abreast into Blanchimont would have been brave. However, Andrew Howard is getting closer and closer, and actually if he'd held back a little bit into Blanchimont, he might have been in a better position into the bus stop chicane. As it is, about 3 or 4 car lengths away from Dexter Muller, but clearly out of Curve Paul Frere, that Aston Martin is very strong through the high-speed sort of right and left-handers that lead to Blanchimont Corner.
Of course, Ross Gunn still to come in this car. Man responsible for much of the testing of the GT3 car, in fact the GTE car. It's now the offering from Aston Martin Racing. Crader, good run from Mark in the top 10 with Rob Hodes ahead. So that's the Grey Market Racing car on the tail of the United Autosports number 23. So a couple of new additions to the championship this year. And these are the kind of guys that you want them to come through this, enjoy it, come back for more, learn more, find themselves getting quicker and quicker. A couple of cracking teams to race with. Grey Market under the awning of Nielsen Racing. Of course, United, Richard Dean and Zach Brown's outfit based up in Yorkshire. Just moved from the infamous industrial park, Science Park at Garforth in West Yorkshire, moving over to a much bigger place in Wakefield. It's all the glamorous spots.
Isn't it just? Ticking them off slowly and surely in every corner of Yorkshire. The big selling point for this championship is the fact that you get to drive at Le Mans, of course, on 2 separate occasions. More damage for the 74, and I don't think that's damage. I don't think that's damage that was being carried from the start of the race. Maybe it is. It's just got progressively worse across the stint. But the 74 was certainly one to be involved in that turn 1 collision, which accounted for 4 LMP3s and the GTE car.
Yeah, it's coming to the right rear wheel arch.
But the bullet's gone as well, or at least it's not correctly sitting.
Something's sitting very low under the car as well. And something's gone bang in a big way.
But you have to think that's tyre, rear right tyre, I think, that's let loose. But not getting...
Yes.
Yeah, possibly.
We're under safety car, leader slow down. Leader slow down, we have a lot of debris P45. Leader slow down, please, we are under safety car.
I think what it might be is actually the bullet that's just completely disintegrated because of the tyre rub.
I wonder if
corner.
it was the bullet caught between the bodywork and the tyre.
Yes, could be that as
that
well.
In some way it's found its way forward.
Now if the Michelin tyres stood up to that amount of damage and wear, then every credit to how that tyre is constructed. But what it's left is several little niggly shards of carbon fibre right across the road at the end of the Kemmel Straight. And unsurprisingly, Eduardo Freitas, the race director, as he always is, going instant safety car because of the potential danger that all of these shards create.
Before the safety car, though, the move had been made. Andrew Howard is ahead of the AMG and is up into 3rd position in the Beech Dean car. And, OK, if you're not familiar with this sort of racing or the reasons behind why that safety car might well have been called, carbon fibre. Small shards of carbon fibre can make a heck of a mess of a tyre, and this is not a place where you want to have that risk.
Yeah.
High risk circuit, Spa-Francorchamps, and safety cars taking them into the debris zone slowly, so they can pick a line through there with as limited amounts of sharp bits of carbon fibre as possible. And that safety car call came immediately. Here we see it again. Look at the blue car in the background. Bang. I'm not sure that's tyre, you know.
No, I don't think it is either.
I think it's all carbon.
Yeah, quite possibly. And I think it's just got to a point where it's stressed so much that the box that normally sits behind the rear wheel, the cheese wedge as we call it sometimes, has just gone bang. And I think the tyre on the 74, the rear right, was actually still inflated. Never got a good enough glimpse of that right side of the car after the incident. It's now being limped back to the pit lane by Maurice Smith, who was driving the Ligier at the time. And quite possibly that was damage picked up at the first corner in the initial incident that involved 5 cars. And it's only now, what are we, nearly 50 minutes later, that it's come to pass.
Cars coming to pit lane, one of those will be, I'm sure the 74 it is, and the others is one of the United Autosports cars, which does seem a bit of odd timing here. As there's damage there, let's hope it's not just played follow a leader, because it's early for the pit stop window.
Well, the other thing is, of course, if you make your pit stop now but don't change your driver, are you technically losing less time than you would do if you were doing it under full race conditions?
Fuel it now?
Yeah, you could do. I mean, the drive time is the worry or the concern for each individual pilot. You've got to do 55 minutes, but you could do that in a super quick stop once we get back to racing speed and do the longer pit stop, 1 minute and 55 seconds under safety car.
So attention to the rear of the 74, that's not looking good, to be honest with you. I suspect that might be order combat.
So Rob Hode's bringing the 23 in. I didn't see a great deal of work being done on that 23 car though in the background, as Cool Racing descended upon the number 74 car. We're hearing from Charlie George in the pit lane that they did put fuel into the 23 car. So are they rolling the dice here? Because otherwise they're just looking at a finishing position outside of the top 10. Why not roll the dice and see where they end up? There's still bits of debris that need to be retrieved, and the marshals are not done yet. They'll be getting their brooms down there as well. This is another reason, well, the main reason why we're behind safety car, because it groups the field up, unlike how a full course yellow would temper the field, because you've still got cars potentially coming through every few seconds, and it's an unsafe environment for the marshals to be there. So a portion of the top bodywork has gone bang, so that accounts for some of the carbon fibre.
I think it's run over a piece of its own bodywork. I think it's been stuck inside that wheel arch. I suspect that tyre's got damage. It may well be they've already changed that tyre.
Yeah.
And that you're quite right that what's then happened is it's punched it up through the bodywork.
Yeah,
so
okay.
It's the bodywork from I don't know quite how it's happened, but I think something was trapped in that wheel arch.
And all of a sudden, projectile style, it's just shot through the uppermost bodywork above that rear right wheel. By the way, this is now a wave by for Roberto Pampanini in his gold and black Mercedes. That's not an illegal manoeuvre. Of course, most of the time racing cars not allowed to overtake the safety car, but if you're out of position, as that car was in the traffic sense between the safety car and the race leader, Manutiotto is going to be allowed to go through as well, but the safety car has now picked up Francois Kerman, who is the race leader. And the large gap that he'd spent the best part of 45 minutes building is now going to be less than a second when we get underway. Kerman to Eric Trouillet.
By the time we do get back underway, we're going to be very, very close to that pit stop window. Yeah. And that, with the majority of these cars having their pro drivers to join them, is going to make for some entertainment in the second half of this race.
United have done exactly what I thought. So they kept Rod Hodes at the wheel because he's not done his 55 minutes yet, but they've done the minimum pit stop, 1 minute and 57. So that means when they do the driver change a little later on in the race, it can be as quick as you like.
Driver change and a tiny bit of fuel.
Yeah, potentially, and send it, because it won't need tyres. Shouldn't need tyres, because Rob Hodes won't have done much mileage, particularly if he stayed behind the safety car.
And he's on the lead lap.
That could be a genius stroke. We've seen it done before. It properly foxed us at the time, but I'm pleased now that we are aware that this can be done. And as long as Rob does the minimum time, which is 55 minutes, so pit in the next 3, and the rate that we're doing laps at the moment, he just comes in next time around.
He will, and he'll be able to actually cover that off even quicker in real terms.
Yeah.
He stays on the lead lap. He loses not a lot in terms of track position.
And to take that car over, a certain Garrett Grist. So he's not going to be hanging around. Matt Bell sharing the 22 car with Jim Maguire, and Matt's going to have more work to do in his Ligier because Jim's currently down in 23rd position.
74 car, I fear, has gone, and that I think was Maurice Smith, wasn't it?
Who brought it in, yes. And it was Maurice Smith who was involved in that incident at La Source when the red lights went out. Then later on, we think now possibly as a result of that early collision in the race, significant damage to the rear right corner and shards of bodywork all over the road at the end of the Kemmel Straight, and Maurice Smith concurs with our thoughts as well.
Very odd incident at that point though, some many minutes on. Behind the safety car, so Francois Kerman it is from Eric Trouillet, who's now within half a second on the road, of course, right there behind him in the safety car queue. Alexander Talkanitsa Jr. Now the only point to mention there is Junior is the quicker of the two Talkanitsas. Adrian Schiller, Tony Wells, Dodonka, Jack Wolf, John Schaumann, Mark Crader. That's your top 9.
So whilst the safety car is out on track, I feel like there's quite a number of highlights that we need to catch up on, and they will start, no doubt. Well, with a busy grid because it was well subscribed, but this was the action that started instantly as soon as the 5 red lights went out. Look at the Ferrari, the red one to the left of shot. It's going to get wedged between Jim Maguire, who fires a manoeuvre up the inside, glances the Ferrari to his left, also slams into the back of the 74 LMP3 car. That's the one that's now into retirement because of the damage done to the rear right, which only bit sort of 45 minutes later. And there were other cars involved as well, including the number 96 machine, and Jim Maguire's car was heavily damaged. That had to come into the pits for further work. Strange incident for a fast-starting Andrea Pacini. He was going well at this stage, but then, out of nowhere, the power steering broke. It meant that he couldn't turn into the right-hander at the bus stop chicane. There was also, of course, the early drama for the 71 Ferrari. Mikey Benham, bit of a race for him to forget so far, with several moments, thankfully limited contact. There was a touch to the back of Marcello Marattiotto here at La Source, which forced Marattiotto to address his steering, and briefly Mikey Benham was facing the white concrete at La Source corner. Change of position within the Graf team, with the number 9 car of Eric Trouillet getting ahead of 39 Adrian Schiller. There was contact here as Eric de Doncker went for a manoeuvre on Marcello Marattiotto, and the DKR engineering car then in further strife, all related to the La Source incident 45 minutes prior, and the legality panel exploding effectively at the end of the Kemmel Straight, littering the track into Les Combes with debris, and that's the reason why we're under a safety car period now. But crucially, we have reached the 55-minute drive time point. We're now at nearly 56 minutes. I reckon we're going to see the pit lane absolutely flooded with cars this time around.
Absolutely right. I think the biggest 2 winners here are the second place car, the number 9 Graf car. That's a big gap close to nothing. The other big winner is the man who's spun more times than Ibiza DJ this race, and that is the Landa Racing car of Mikey Benham, because he will come in, albeit from 11th position, if we stay on the safety car. We are going to stay on the safety car, of course, to this point. Is just 13 seconds off the lead.
But the lights are out on the Porsche that leads the cars through Blanchimont. It's no longer in shot because Francois Kerman is now dictating the pace. He's done his 55 minutes as well. Will he be the first into the pit lane? Yes. And how many more are going to follow him in? Well, Eric Trouillet happy to stay out. His pace has been good enough, but virtually everybody else now darting to the right. It's almost like the end of the session, but we're still in the thick of the race, and I think if those are spectating down at Eau Rouge and Raidillon are going to see one car through at this rate. Eric de Doncker did stay out. Jacques Wolf, no, he didn't, I beg your pardon. 98 came in. CD Sports number 30 car came in for its first stop of the race, and many, many more. So it'll be Eric Trouillet leading by a country mile here. However, everybody else behind making their mandatory stop. They're going to be in the pits for 1 minute and 55 seconds. And it does mean for John Schaumann, who's fairly late to the pit road, that actually parking his car is particularly tricky. John coming in from 8th place on the road for Cool Racing. And Sergio Pianazzola deciding to stop at this point as well. Ross Gunn's already been in. Yannick Mettler on an outlap. Now, they were positioned behind the safety car so that they could actually come in on the previous lap because their drive time was already completed. So Yannick Mettler taking over from Dexter Muller, and Ross Gunn still ahead of him on the road, taking that Aston Martin ahead away from Andrew Howard. But it's effectively battle rejoined between Beechdean and SPS.
So the only cars that stayed out were the Graf car that had been sitting second place. Number 9 car takes the lead for the moment. The 96 Cool Racing car in the hands of Anders Chiodomo, that now runs second but owes that pit stop. And also staying out was the much delayed Marattiotto in the number 5 DKR car, but actually pits right now as I speak. So just 2 cars that will pit next time around.
It is all quiet, generally speaking, unless you're watching at Speaker's Corner, because the Aston Martin of Ross Gunn is making waves now, running in 3rd position and waving goodbye to the red and black Mercedes that has troubled that car throughout the opening stint for Andrew Howard. But Ross Gunn clearly getting the pedal down and wasting no time at all. I noticed it's a 2 minutes 3 second lap for that car, so they were well over, but making sure that everything was in order as rejoining the former race leader Francois Kerman. But this is effectively the net race lead now. Not Kerman, but teammate, although Kerman's still labelled at the wheel, but it should in fact be Laurence Heur to take this car over. And rejoining right behind, Eric Trouillet to hand to Adrien Trouillet, and Adrien Schiller in the 39 car will hand over to French French hill climb champion Nicolas Schatz.
Yeah, Eric Trouillet pits the next possible opportunity in what we would think would be a less busy pit lane. That might be part of what they were looking to do. See if Trouillet could take advantage of a clear track ahead of him with one quick lap and then a less busy pit lane. We'll see with that pace off. The 96 car yet to pit. Ross Gunn pulling out a goodly advantage on the car he pitted alongside almost on his outlap. 99 car looking pretty well placed here.
It certainly is, and helped of course by the safety car, which concertinaed everything up, and it meant that the Aston well and truly in with a shout here of a podium finish.
Up to second. So ahead of the Spirit race car, which took some delay in the pits.
Well, Giacomo Puccini the car to beat now in the number 8.
Of course, what we've got to take into account is the pit stop penalties that actually come into account for some of these cars. It was not something that will have hit the Beechstein car to any meaningful degree.
Yeah.
So it would have hit the championship contenders. The key to this, though, Johnny, is where is the Luzic Racing car going to emerge?
As Michael Mack was chatting to Charlie George, mentioning that the extra 29 seconds that car had to serve in the pit stop because it is a championship leader, and the 8 car also with an extra chunk of time that it needed to soak up.
Well, Michael Mack has emerged in 7th position in class, and neatly, exactly 30 seconds behind the 6th place car. That's now the EB Motors Porsche.
Over the line to complete the first lap then from the pits, Laurence Heur in the number 3, turning right at La Source to begin the descent towards Eau Rouge, and behind Nicolas Schatz, just talking a small amount, just let's have a look. 2.6 seconds is the margin as back to the front of the field goes Laurence Heur.
Which of the Graf cars is ahead on the track there, though, because the car that was leading the race for that lap has come out in the middle of that.
Right. Adrien Trouillet, you mean? Yes, because Nicolas Schatz had already rejoined the race and Eric Trouillet pitted a lap later. Meanwhile, Duncan Tappy is now all over the back of Garrett Grist in the 23 car. So this is a fight for position. 5th and 6th places for the young Canadian versus the Brit. 2 abreast they're going to go. It's also a Ligier versus Norma fight, and Garrett Grist just cannot hold Duncan Tappy back.
It's straight line speed for Norma there, I'm afraid. The Ligier's strength is in that second sector, and that was Colin Noble going past the number 9 car. That's the Colin Noble car going up into 3rd position, so it's all change here. It is the 3 from the 39. Her from Schatz, from Noble, from Trouillet, from Tappy, from Grist now, and Alex Mortimer aboard the Grain Market car, 20 car in 7th position.
And that safety car regarding Mikey Bennett could be a huge Christmas present come early here, because it meant that the 25 is back in the reckoning, potentially for a top 5 finish. There are 1 or 2 LMP3s up ahead. Well, actually, Tappy's already 5th. He's chasing down Colin Noble. Adrien Trouillet on an outlap is in 3rd position. And there's just 4.7 seconds between the top 3. Noble ahead of Trouillet now. So perhaps the fact that number 9 car is on an outlap means that tyres are still coming into the operating window, and the Scot wasting no time at all for Nielsen Racing. Noble now to 3rd and trying to chase down Nicolas Schatz and Laurence Heur in the remaining 56 and a bit minutes we have left.
This could be a cracker. It's just around 56 minutes left, as Johnny Palmer says, and trouble, it looks like, for the number 8 car. There's something bodywork rubbing on the rear left tyre.
Michael Mack being told that he must respect the track limits.
It's definitely smoking.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, is that fluid trailing from the car, or is it something rubbing? But the Ferrari not quite sitting correctly. looks all right there, and as the weight shifts to the right side of the car into Blanchimont, I'm sure that smoke or whatever it is will disappear, but it's something to keep our eye on nevertheless. That car continues to lead its class.
Remember, that is a critical car for the championship. That's the car in contention for the lead with the delayed Lucix Racing car. This is the opportunity they perhaps have been looking for. Precious few of them.
8 seconds is the margin between Giacomo Puccini and Ross Gunn.
Number 9 again.
And that's not part of the script. Now, I just wonder whether something wasn't quite right with that car, because Colin Noble was able to get by Adrien Trouillet very rapidly indeed. I expected Trouillet to hold a bit more of a defence than that, so maybe an ill-fitting wheel or a slow puncture. But yes, number 9 back in again, and that was just a routine, well, not a routine stop, an unexpected stop for car number 9.
Meantime, by the way, as we watch the lead, this is the lead pair. Ross Gunn is herring towards the race leader in GT. Giacomo Puccini is just 7.6 seconds ahead, lost 3 seconds last time around. I think he's down the problem.
By the way, the slight gamble that United Autosports made in the 23 has paid off to an extent, because Garrett Grist is up to 5th position. They did their fuel and longer stop outside of the driver window, kept Rod Hodes at the wheel, then he came in later on. They did another pit stop, 1 minute and 12, but that driver change, once you've done your 1 minute 55, can be as quick as you want to. Splash it with fuel, as Graham mentioned, and send it back out. 5th place is their reward. They were actually 4th before being overtaken by Duncan Tapping.
What they've gained, effectively, it's a drive-through penalty, meanwhile, for the 54 car from Pugh of the yellow flag. They've gained, effectively, somewhere around 30 seconds on the field.
Yeah. Because of doing the longer stop under a safety car, and everyone else is trundling around at 60 kph or so. Yeah, that 54 drive-through got to be related to the message earlier on the screen saying that the team manager had to go to race control. Discussions were had, and after improving under the yellow flag at 25 past 4, so possibly one of the first yellow flags we had in the race, that car is now going to have to come down pit lane to serve a drive-through. The trip down pit lane takes about 23 seconds. That doesn't take into account the time that it's not a full 23 seconds lost, because you are still moving, but just at a much reduced speed. Down into Campus Corner then goes the Mercedes in question. That car is currently 3rd in class, but he's surely going to drop.
He will definitely
one
drop
position,
at least one. I suspect maybe a couple.
Yeah,
it's going to be tight.
Mauro Calamia now at the wheel of the number 7 Scuderia Villorba Corsa car.
Fastest lap of the race, meanwhile, goes to the 2nd place car, Nico Schatz, in a 2:15.305. Only pulls 0.2 closer this time to the leader, but the gap under 2.5 seconds.
Through Blanchimont comes the car formerly driven by Christoph Ulrich. It's now been handed over to Maurizio Mediani, and that car is 4th in GT3. Behind it is actually Cencetti, who has taken over the number 5 DKR engineering machine. That's Marco Cencetti. So Marcello Marattiotto to Marco Cencetti within DKR, and after that we got 4 GT3s all in a line, although there are seconds between them. Mauro Calamia for Scuderia Villorba Corsa. Ebby Motors, the number 88 car, has been taken over by Daniel Mancinelli, who I think is a new name to the Michelin Le Mans Cup this weekend. Welcome, Daniel. Mikkel Mack in a recovering Lucix Racing Ferrari, so 7th, and then Ollie Hancock in the 8th place Kessel Racing Ferrari number 50.
Watching the rhythm of this race, the lead pair are pulling away just a little as it's another fastest lap. This time it goes to Laurent Heur. It's into the first one, into the 2:14s, 2:14.861. They are going to have to sort, Johnny Palmer, that driver indicator.
Yeah, because often if that stays like that for too long, then penalties can be incurred, as it were.
And the reason behind that, by the way, is the implication is there's a potential time advantage by not doing that in the pit stop.
Yeah.
If you've forgotten to do it, or you've not done it, there's potential that that could have been a problem that you've got around by not performing a task you've got to do on the race.
Yeah, but also, I mean, I noticed that the more recently abuse of track limits is labelled to a driver, because it came up a minute ago for the 71, driver Mikkel Mack.
Correct.
driving limits being exceeded. So of course, if you've not got your driver ID correct, and it is now been moved to Laurence Her, so that's been righted. But of course, you could be trying to go under the radar a little bit by putting the wrong driver in. I was fearful that actually it was Laurence Her for the first stint, and now Francois Kerman was the correct driver, but Laurence Her's pace tells me that it is indeed the German driver taking over then from the Frenchman, and he's down into the high 2-minute 14s now.
But not quite as far down as Duncan Tappy. He now claims the fastest lap of the race, 2:14.636, and is continuing chase on Colin Noble, who sits in the final podium position right now. So it is Laurence Her in the DKR Engineering number 3 that leads the race. He's just under 3 seconds clear of Nicolas Schatz in the 39 Graf car. Then the Nielsen racing car of Colin Noble, the number 2. Then Duncan Tappy in the London racing car, the number 25. Garrett Grist, the lead Ligier, 5th position, but dropping back from that level.
The other interesting message at the bottom of our screen currently is that the pit stop for the race leader is under investigation. Now, is that related to the switch for the driver ID? It's 1:58, which, according to my stats, is okay for a pit stop. It'll be 1:55, okay. And there are others that have done 1:58, including Lannon Racing and the second place Graf car. But were there more than the required number of mechanics across that white line? Was there a loose wheel that maybe started to roll towards the fast lane? Or is it related to driver ID? As the Kia Racing car is in more strife, still carrying the damage, of course, from earlier on in the race. Kia Racing's machine now being driven by Johan Jokinen, but it has come to a halt. Is that at Speaker's Corner, turn 9? I think it may well be. The camera point looking down from a great height because it's level with the track coming out of Les Combes, of course, and there's an indication of quite how much height is lost through that sequence of corners, Bruxelles and down into turn 9. That's not a nice place to be sitting, actually, because if somebody else was to lose it at turn 9, it's directly in the firing line. Yellow flags at the moment, nothing more severe, and it means no overtaking into Speaker's Corner until that car's retrieved.
I'm pretty sure there's not a gap in the barrier there for it, though.
Yeah, and it's on the wrong side of the track, isn't it? Because there are probably recovery crews on the inside of turn 9.
No, I think the recovery crews are actually the previous corner
at Bruxelles, yeah.
But I don't recall there being a gap in the barrier there.
So it's going to be tricky, and I'm sure the cogs are going round for Eduardo Freitas now as to how to deal with that. He'll be in touch with the men and women on the ground as well at the scene, because they're possibly the best to offer an opinion as to how to deal with this situation. Very late manoeuvre there for the number 5 car, which is now being driven by Marco Cencetti, by the way. And that was the 5 overtaking the 96 Cool Racing machine for 13th position. 96 now in the hands of Romain Carton. And they both turn right at La Source to power their way back down the hill towards Eau Rouge. We're going to go full course yellow to retrieve Johan Jokinen in the Kia Racing car. And that happens now, right on the minute of 48 still to go. So everybody down to 80 kilometres per hour. This is unlike a safety car. It's not going to change the gaps between the cars. So effectively, when we get racing again, there's still going to be about a 3.3 second gap for Laurence Her to Nicolas Schatz in second.
So full course yellow as is. Race control will be looking to see if anybody took any advantage there. This is the change of position before full course yellow was called. Bit of a slide there. Slippy through the bus stop. We've seen a few drivers caught out there.
Yeah, Marco Cencetti doing well to hang on to that. Of course, he was attacking the bus stop chicane at a very different angle from your ideal racing line. Shallow entry means, of course, he's then running wide on the exit, but that actually helped him to make sure that Romain Carton could not reply. And that's for 13th position, as I say. There is your gap between first and second place cars. Laurence Her and Nicolas Schatz, about 3 seconds at racing speed.
Car being towed backwards towards a gap in the barrier.
Colin Noble last time through, where the tail end of his lap will have been affected by the full course yellow. So still third, and still I think just about to keep the measure on Duncan Tappy behind. There must be about 20 seconds or so between the two Brits, there or thereabouts at racing speed. Garrett Grist clinging on to a 5th place finish at this stage, but right behind him I notice Alex Mortimer, who's taken charge of the Grain Market Racing car from Mark Crader, so that'll be one to look out for when we go back to green.
Alex's pace has been pretty good. It's not been quite as good as the 4 cars that lead the race, but good enough to be catching Garrett Grist at this stage.
So hopefully this will be a relatively quick full course yellow. You mentioned there's nowhere really to put that 43 car and leave it safely, so it may have to be towed across the track.
No, I think they're going to go to. I think there's a gap in the barrier about halfway between the 2 corners.
Down towards Pouhon.
Down towards Speaker's Corner.
Okay. So yeah, maybe just some over. I mean, well, that's all you need—a bit of overlap in the Armco or the tyre wall, so that it can be parked up for the remainder of the race. Then recover it on a flatbed once we're done. This race due to finish at, well, the checkered flag could come out as early as 5 to 6 local time, but it'll wait for the race leader, and if the race leader squeezes out an extra lap, even if there are just seconds remaining on the clock, then we do a further lap, which could take us closer to 6 p.m. 45 minutes to go before that point though, and still this is delicately poised, particularly because of that message on the screen about the number 3 car's pit stop. Something's happened to alert the marshals in the pit lane. You don't normally get that message unless something's being investigated. So there is concern about maybe something not being done to the letter of the law during the stop. And then, of course, we had the period of time where Lawrence Herr's name was Francois Kerman because the driver ID hadn't been switched.
We're going back green flag racing in about 15 seconds' time.
Paolo Venerossi's number 88 Porsche, if indeed it is still Paolo at the wheel. It's not, it's Daniel Mancinelli now taking that car over for Ebby Motors.
About to press the noisy button in about 3 seconds. Away we're going to go. Watching Alex Mortimer there. Is he going to try and jump immediately by Garrett Grist? Doesn't quite make it. Grist could see that move. Not a mile off, but he wishes it was a mile.
About a kilometre off probably. At the start of the Kemmel Straight, I reckon Alex Mortimer was having a little look up the inside. Needed to be very careful not to generate any sort of overlap, because even if the very front of your splitter is level with the bullet on the car in front, that is judged as overtaking. But as long as you're not alongside somebody else at the point where you go back to green, he should be absolutely fine. And actually Garrett Grist has turned those tyres on much more readily than Alex Mortimer. He's just edging away into the distance. Mortimer will get into his stride in a moment or two. Behind them is Mancinelli, and he is 6th in the GT3 ranks. But it's 1.3 seconds now between Giacomo Piccini and Ross Gunn. So the GT3 lead very much in the offing here between Kessel Racing Ferrari and the Aston Martin from Beach Dean.
And that was under full course yellow. We've not yet seen them go past a timing beam at full green flag speeds. So let's wait and see just exactly where Ross Gunn is. And they reckon he had trouble for the 5 again. It was that. It was a spin all by himself through Lecombe. Half spin and neatly recovered.
Yeah.
5.8 from the Luxembourg judge.
Well, not a great deal of time lost, thankfully, as now the cars that are jostling for position in GT3 go through the second split, which is down at Curve Paul Frere, and in reality it is 1.2 seconds between Piccini and Ross Gunn, and that's full racing speed now. So the mid-engined Ferrari, the 488, and that's GT3 of course spec, so but with the ABS and the traction control. Aston Martin, great to see the brand new Vantage, which is being pushed hard now by Ross Gunn.
And this is that battle. In fact, they're coming up to potentially lap Michael Mack.
Yes, and that's the car wanting desperately to get more championship points. There's going to be another drive-through penalty for car 54 for speeding in the pit lane. We have already had a drive-through for that car, yes, because its last stop was 23 seconds for Yannick Mettler. So was Yannick caught speeding during the drive-through?
I think he's going to lose 1 position to that. It's not going to affect the cars fighting for the championship, as some other dramas interfere.
So that's just going to further compound the problems for car 54 that had been going strongly in the opening stint. Remember Dexter Muller's battle with Christoph Ulrich in the early stages between the two bronze-graded drivers. Alex Mortimer going through Pouhon now with Garrett Grist just ahead. They are dicing for 5th and 6th positions and heading directly for Francorchamps now. Another pit stop under investigation.
That's Garrett Grist.
For Garrett's car, yes. When it was handed from Rob Hodes to Garrett Grist.
Well, remember, it could be either one of those pit stops that's under investigation.
It could. And
it may well be they are just seeking to clarify whether the rules were applied properly. I think they were.
Yeah. Well,
in terms of the times that were taken,
the time was definitely fine for the first pit stop because that was their mandatory stop. They didn't change driver, but there's nothing in the regulations that tells you that you must. And then the driver change was done later on. But there's things like, I mean, the problem is then if the team aren't well rehearsed in doing a quick driver change, there's issues with belts and things, isn't there? You know, if a driver's spotted releasing the belts a little bit too soon because they're fearful that they won't get the stop done quick enough, then those things will have been checked as well, together with some evidence offered probably by observers in the pit lane and also a bit of CCTV coverage, whatever they may have down the pit lane. You've always got to be careful that the new wheels going on the car don't escape and start rolling in all sorts of directions. There's rules about numbers of personnel across the white line as well. There's another message appears about Maurizio Mediani's driving style now, being told to respect the track limits at turn 4, which is the exit of Radion towards the Kemmel Straight.
So leading pair separated by just over 2 seconds, clear of Colin Noble. There's Duncan Tappy 10 seconds behind him. It's a static gap. I think Tappy just closing in just a little. Garrett Grist has dropped off the back of that, but now has Alex Mortimer, right behind him. And GT for 11th position overall. It's this battle. There's title contender Giacomo Pacini and the number 8 Kestel Racing Ferrari, blue car with the white stripes. Snapping, snarling Aston Martin behind of Ross Gunn, less than a second. Ahead of them, by the way, Alexander Tarkanitsa is for position.
Yes, 10th overall, and the GTs are then 11th and 12th overall, with behind
quicker, which could play a part here.
Adrien Trouillet could, also have an impact, because he's wanting to get by these cars after the extra pit stop that Graf didn't expect to have to serve, or whatever the problem was there, whether it was a cross-threaded wheel nut or it might have been a vibration, slow puncture perhaps, but the 9 car having been very neatly placed during the opening stint, they got their pit stop done a lap later than everybody else after cracking driving from Eric Trouillet to hand over to son Adrian, but now unfortunately that 9 car down in 13th position.
So 38 minutes left on the clock, and plenty of battle still to play out here. Still that battle between Garrett Grist and Alex Mortimer to be sorted. The lead 2 meanwhile fully up to speed, and we're beginning to see fast sector times coming through. Fastest sector 1 time of the race so far goes to Lance Hur. It's just a couple of 300ths slower is Nico Schatz chasing.
They've found some clear air, haven't they? Because now Hur, Schatz, Noble and Tappy, 1, 2, 3 and 4, are going faster than they've managed all race long. And an absolute best first sector for the race leader, Laurence Hur. Meanwhile, side by side down towards Eau Rouge. That's never going to work. And thankfully, the number 4 car was given the place. Nico Rondet racing with, was that Rugolo then, in the number 55?
That was 4 position.
Yes, so Rondet versus Rugolo, going the way of the driver of the number 4 car, Frenchman Nicolas Rondet, who shares with the American driver John Schaumann. And as Graham says, for 8th place. Meanwhile, Ferrari's nose to tail.
But these are the title contenders, but this is for the number 8 car, the title chasing car, to lap the championship leading car, Michael Mack. And through 2 goes Ross Gunn. These are the 2 contending the lead. And, neatly done there by Michael Mack. Let them go.
Yeah.
This is going to be a run for Michael Mack to try and get as many points as he possibly can out of what's been a fundamentally bad day for Luzic Racing.
But yes, it takes a strong man to do that gentlemanly, to allow the cars that are on the lead lap through safely, and there must be something in the back of his mind saying, I could just sideswipe him here and make sure he doesn't finish. But you're going to bear the repercussions later on in the race.
They came into this race having set pole position, Luzic Racing, with an 8-point cushion. As we have 51 points left on the table. At the moment, 25 of them are going to the 8 car. I've zero doubt that Luzic Racing would like that 25 points to be not going to that car, but rather to the chasing 99 car.
Indeed so. And Ross Gunn is going to do his level best to make sure that happens, but it's a rare day that Giacomo Puccini makes a mistake, so this could just be a boring run to the finish now for Ross Gunn, sitting there waiting for his opportunity. But I think it's going to have to be an error from Giacomo Puccini. We've had power steering go on a Ferrari already in this race, so there is the chance of something like that happening, not in the control of the driver. And Gunn does close up under braking. That Aston's very, very strong on the brakes, quite clearly. Gets the gap down to just half a car length, but the Ferrari opens up the margin once again as it accelerates out of the bus stop chicane, and gradually, of course, these cars are getting lighter and lighter as they burn off the fuel, so lap times could well come down as well. It may even be down to tyre wear, of course. If you nurse the tyres in the early portion of the stint, you're going to have more rubber to lean on as we get towards the flag.
There is going to be good news for Michael Mack and the Luzic Racing team, because one of the cars ahead of them, the number 7 Scuderia Villorba Corsa car, moment in the hands of Calamia, running in 5th position, is going to be getting a 3-minute stop-and-go penalty for overtaking the safety car. In addition to which, Ciancetti in the number 5 DKR car is going to get the same penalty. So those cars pass the safety car, presumably without instruction to do so, and will be getting 3-minute penalties. And a big winner there is going to be the Luzic Racing efforts. It's going to put that car up into, as the 54 car takes, I presume, its drive-through, that will not drop it into the hands of the Luzic Racing car. It may not now lose it a place, because the car that would have lost a place to is going to get a far more weighty penalty.
So actually, I described at the time that was perfectly fine. I'm pleased that they're not going to come to me for evidence. or maybe they will now that they've heard that. But sometimes you're in a situation where the safety car is thrown out onto track so quickly, as it was in that instance, because it was debris at the end of the camel straight. You throw it out, doesn't matter whether it picks up the leader or not, you sort that out afterwards. There's then something called a wave-by, which is the traffic that's caught between the race leader and the safety car is released. But clearly the 5 and the 7 cars weren't in that pocket of traffic and just took it upon themselves to dive past the safety car. And it may well be that Pampanini made the first move, car number 7, and Maritiotto followed suit. But I remember the incident because it was the gold Mercedes and the all-green DKR Engineering LMP3. They both did it in the clear light of day, and clearly that's been checked, and they did not have permission.
A couple of close battles underway in LMP3. Nico Ronde did pass the Spirited Race car of Michele Rubio. He's not managed to pull away. Meanwhile, Garrett Grist finally has to cede position to Alex Mortimer to dive up the inside into the car, but that had to happen for Mortimer, because closing is Dino Lunardi. His battling pair not far behind them, maybe a couple of corners back. So battles all the way down from 5th down to 9th in 2 different groups. Colin Noble for that final podium position. Still got more than half an hour to go.
So at the moment, Luzic Racing looking at scoring 3 points, no, more than that, 6 points for a 7th place finish, but it could potentially be the full 25 to Giacomo Puccini.
To stop and go for the lead car.
Here we go. Well,
and the 23.
Yeah, see, there were fears for me as soon as that message appeared about Garrett Grist's car and the race leader Laurence Heur. It's because they spun the wheels in the pit lane. Now, that was presumably when the car was back on the ground. As it left, it either spun the wheels, or indeed, when it was up on the jacks, the wheels were seen to be rotating. Either is a no-no, and it's going to be a stop-and-go penalty. Not for any period of time, just literally stop the car and go again. But that's going to be very costly to number 3.
It's certainly going to lose it in the lead.
Yes.
And I think it's going to lose it another position to Colin Noble. It's going to be tight, but I think it's going to lose it. We know it's 23 seconds to run through pit lane. This is not a drive-through, it's a stop and go. Therefore, be a couple of seconds longer. But remember, you don't lose 23, 24, 25 seconds on the road because you're still moving forward, albeit at a slower rate.
Yep.
So it's a 24-second gap, first to fourth at the moment. That is the lead group, effectively. And I think Lance Hurt is going to come out after Colin Noble. And up the inside, goes Rugolo, who takes that position from Nico Ronde. I think they will be able to pull away now.
Let's see what the Italian can do for the Spirit of Race entry. R55 down towards Eau Rouge, and climbing up the other side now. Nico Ronde not short of speed though, and he's going to try and stay on the tail of Michele Rugolo for as long as possible. The next car up the road for Rugolo to chase is actually Garrett Grist in the number 23, but not for much longer, because Garrett's going to have to come in to serve a stop-and-go penalty. So then you're looking at Dino Lunardi in the number 98 car, which that car didn't start its race brilliantly well after contact, side-to-side contact with the number 5 DKR Engineering Norma. But Eric Dodonka recovered that moment at his home race and handed the car over to Dino Lunardi. They are 6th currently.
Yeah, Lunardi has already gone by Garrett Grist before the stop and go. So that's going to be costly for Garrett Grist. Still these two GT cars battling away. Still Ross Gunn looking for a way by. This Beach Dean effort beginning to come on strong towards the end of the season as they learn the nuances with this brand new turbo V8 engined Aston Martin.
Nothing between the top 2 in the GT3s, but Ross Gunn giving it absolutely everything here and trying to force an error, and you would have thought his constant presence in the mirrors just second-guessing Giacomo Puccini with every turn of the wheel, but Puccini can deal with this pressure.
30 car behind this pair, by the way, is for position. It's a recovering CD Sport car, so they're soon going to have to deal with not only each other but a snapping Norma. They've left, by the way, Mikkel Mack. He's taken that lapping and has dropped back. Meanwhile, Alex Mortimer now has his mirrors full of Dino Lunardi, this 98 car in 6th position, the lead of the Ligiers, and looking for a way by the number 20 car.
It's a brave place to try and do it as you go through Eau Rouge and Raidillon, but they almost went 2 abreast as a result. If things stay as they are in the GT3 category, you're looking at an 11-point lead for Puccini and Pianezzola, who currently lead the race. If it was to be a second-place finish, therefore Ross Gunn gets by, then it's only a 4-point advantage that Puccini and Pianezzola would take to the final event. So incredibly tight indeed. We thought 7 points was tight, but it's going to get even closer potentially.
Well, the conversation about 7 was the difference between first and second, wasn't it? So coming into the final race with a gap of anything more than 7 points is fairly significant. Yep. 25 to 18. In comes the number 3 car for that stop and go. Through to the lead will go Nico Schatz. Does so now.
And probably on this lap, Garrett's already been in, hasn't he, Garrett Grist, for his stop and go.
Yep,
took him 27 seconds, so it's going to be about the same for Laurent Hurt.
Where is the DKR car going to come out?
Well, Schatz is the new leader, no doubt about that, car number 39. What about Colin Noble? He's going to appear now at La Source, so Noble will go through into 2nd position. 3rd place perhaps for Laurent Hurt. Duncan Tappy in the background will stay 4th, so it's 2 places lost loss for the orange and black DKR engineering machine, and now potentially a race win for Nicolas Schatz. Colin Noble is 11, nearly 12 seconds down the road.
Indeed, this couldn't be better for Schatz, could it? Because not only is he taking the lead, but he's put his race-leading rival into a three-way battle with two of the hardest players out there, Colin Noble and Duncan Tappy. And both of them will see the opportunities that arise here. Colin Noble will see the opportunity for a very strong finish. Duncan Tappy will absolutely see an opportunity to get his car onto the podium. Dino Nardi, meanwhile, has got by the Grain Market Racing car. So the lead Ligier now up into 5th position, albeit 40 seconds back from Duncan Tappy.
Of course, the other thing that Tappy will be focused on is the fact that if he can get ahead of the DKR engineering car, then that means he's outscored. Lannon will have outscored the championship leaders. Now, OK, you're looking at a 17-point margin. In fact, it ventured up to 18 points, didn't it, after qualifying earlier on. But they're trying to whittle that down with another 51 points on offer. A race win, surely a bit too much to ask for Duncan Tappy, but if he can squeeze onto the podium and get ahead of Lawrence Hurd, and that's a few more points gained back again, with a further 26 to fight for at Portimao at the end of next month. Just over 25 minutes to go, and this time Pacini seems to be a bit further in front of Ross Gunn.
He does.
So was that a slower lap for the British driver? 2:22, maybe to do with a bit of traffic.
It's a 30 car get involved there. That's exactly what we said would happen.
Yeah.
It's the 30 car CD Sport coming through. And unfortunately for Ross Gunn, he's going to catch the car ahead in a rather better position. Losing less time.
And Giacomo Pacini maybe just having to feather the throttle slightly through the corner, the sequence of the right, left and right, but CD Sport do manage to get back up ahead. That's Kyle Balbasson, who has taken charge of the number 30 car then. And that will be 13th position, in fact 12th position now that he's got ahead of Giacomo Pacini. So those were moves for position with LMP3s getting in front of GT3s, and the battle therefore at the head of the order with the GT3 between the Ferrari and the Aston Martin can continue.
Absolutely twitchy times for these two teams. Recessive Racing, because this could be a big move for them in the championship, for Beach Team AMR, because the race win potentially beckons.
Colin Noble quicker through the first sector than Nicolas Schatz, but it's only a 10th of a second. He's got 11.7 seconds to try and find on Schatz, the race leader, with Lawrence Hurd in 3rd position. Tappy just 5 seconds, lapping at a very similar to post 2:17s also, and Alex Mortimer 2:19s. So is he being caught in the 55 with a little over 20 minutes still to go? Let's head down to Aston Martin and grab a teammate Ross Gunn.
Yeah, and down here at Beach Dean, Andrew, that was quite a stint from you, starting from dead last, and now you guys are right up there.
Yeah, no, absolutely brilliant. We changed engines last night, so we had an issue this morning with the car, which quite rightly put us to the back of the grid. But no, love it. Love Spa, absolutely love Spa, but I mean the car's just been absolutely brilliant today.
It looks like that was a lot of fun for you, and how are you feeling now watching Ross fighting for that lead?
So we'll see what happens. What was great was that it was really clean racing, and what's great is that everybody is respecting each other out there, you know, through traffic, everything else. So, and it's the best thing you want to do is race. You know, you want to be racing cars. That's what we're here for. So, no, fantastic.
And a podium would be a really great result for you.
Back of the grid, yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Helped, of course, by the safety car, but you need to be in a position to benefit from that.
Yep.
And yeah, up to 2nd place. It could be one better yet.
Colin Noble, meanwhile, is trying to make good his escape from the number 3 car. It's penalised out of the leaders, of course. sister car, by the way, the number 5, having taken that 3-minute stop and go, is going to have to come down pit lane again for a stop and go with engine stopped. Another penalty. Can only presume that's because something went wrong in that 3-minute stop and go.
Yeah, and does the rule say that the engine must remain running throughout the 3 minutes, or does it have to start of its own accord? Anyway, the car number 5 is back in the penalty box again and serving a stop and go. The engine did stay live on that occasion, and Marco Cencetti will be able to rejoin, but it's stone last, that car now. The only ones behind it on the timing screen are the ones that have retired from the race.
Laurence Hur is pushing hard to get, well, he's on to terms with Colin Noble, looking to do what he can to close the gap. Duncan Tapping for the first time in the race not catching right now. So 2 big battles underway, one for second position overall, 21 minutes to go, and the other for the lead in GT3.
Out of the right-hander at Campus Corner, and now Curve Paul Frere for the car that is in 3rd position, but right with Colin Noble, 0.4 of a second. Very good first sector on this particular lap for Laurence Hur, the driver that it took a little while to get his name on the board, despite having taken the car over 4 laps previously, but is racing hard now. And this is the point, of course, where we get to see exactly how good Laurence Hur is, having had to come in to serve a drive-through penalty, spinning the wheels in the pit stop. Ross Gunn taking a leaf out of Andrew Howard's book there by just drifting off the racing line to show himself in the mirrors of Giacomo Pacini. Is he going to go for a proper overtake? Well, probably not, but it's sowing the seed of doubt in Pacini's mind.
Lots up for grabs here in this battle for second position, not least the fact that these 2 young men, Colin Noble and Laurence Hur, is very much amongst the names that are on the shopping lists for P3 and P2 teams in the coming season. That's what this is all about for a young professional. Show what you can do in these little prototypes and see whether or not that can attract the attention of the big boys in the P2 cars further up the pit lane. It's exactly what happened last year for Joop van Uitert, of course. Got himself very much in the limelight, and well, he's taking meetings galore about where his talents might be in the future, and I'm sure these 2 would love to be in that position.
We have a battle that is very close for 2nd and 3rd currently, and about the same for 1st and 2nd in GT3. And as Graham mentioned, a chance for many drivers to make their name. It's a good package to be on, because you've got European Le Mans Series team members, engineers, looking at these races for potential new talent, certainly. And it's also about how well you can work with your co-driver. You've got bronzes in with silvers and golds, working with one another to try and improve the pace of principally the bronze, but there's always a chance, of course, that the quicker driver could learn a thing or 2 as well.
There's 2 very valuable assets in sports car racing for aspirant professional drivers. One is results, no doubt about it, is the results you produce. Can you get those wins? Can you get those podiums? The second is data. It's showing the consistency, showing the speed, showing that against established rivals. And that's, for these guys, what the Michelin Le Mans Cup is about. Those 2 things: get the results, get the data. Show how quick you are in comparison to your peers. That's a move for position. And I think that is the AT Racing car being taken by the CD Sport car for 11th position.
So Taukenitz Senior now on board the AT Racing car, being overtaken by Kyle Bolbessesson, and the CD Sport car is safely through. Way off the track though now is Laurence Hur. He misjudged the braking point into La Source. Might have actually been going for an overtake on Colin Noble, and it's bitten him because he was that eager to get by. Maybe ran out of brakes, had to run wide, and uses the runoff to maintain speed. So what happened here? Well, it was before that he's gone way out wide, whereas Colin Noble takes the more conventional route, deciding not to whip over the sausage curb and risk breaking the suspension. And now rejoins. I don't think that's going to be labelled as gaining an advantage by running off the track. If he starts to do it regularly, then the stewards will be frowning upon it.
He certainly didn't take a disadvantage, did he?
No, I agree with that. And actually, you probably, because you're able to put your foot down that little bit earlier, potentially, you're using bits of the track that aren't the track to benefit. Didn't gain the place though.
No, I think if he were, I think you're right, Johnny. If he were to do it again, my guess is he'll get a warning for it.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it doesn't become a mistake; it becomes tactical.
0.6 of a second remains the margin between those two. Noble ahead of Laurence Heur. Duncan Tappy, frustratingly for him, can't get any closer than about 5 seconds because the consistency is just metronomic for all three of those. 2:16 something, 2:16 something, 2:16 8 for Duncan Tappy, but it's all about the same ballpark. This time Heur is closer again. Is there an opportunity towards the end of the lap into the bus stop maybe for the German? On Scottish driver Colin Noble just up ahead. So they run 2 ahead of 3, but it's not the number 1 car that leads, it's the number 39 car that is out front, Nicolas Schatz, and still by near enough an 11-second margin. GT3 still 1.2 seconds. Could have told you it was that 30 minutes ago. Giacomo Piccini not missing a beat so far.
The more aggressive of the two here, without a shadow of a doubt, is Laurence Heur. And I guess it's a question of where and when the move is going to come, rather than if. And are these two beginning to drop themselves back into the lap of Duncan Tappy? The answer is no. He's catching, but just by hundredths. As you quite rightly said, I'm sure that's going to be massively frustrating for the 25 driver.
Yeah. With Laurence Heur's aggressiveness, there is a chance, of course, of a slight mistake here and there, as we've already seen at the source. So this aggression may not necessarily pay off. Colin Noble, I noted, he's been carrying one of the onboard cameras this weekend. Very, very smooth driving style, particularly towards the end of the lap through Curve Paul Frere and Blanchimont. And he's not going to be flustered by this, despite being early on in his racing career, the man from Edinburgh.
If he can soak up the pressure, the odds are his tyres are going to be in better shape.
Yeah, absolutely. Rather than squirming and sliding to get those extra tenths out of the corners, Laurence Heur will be working his tyres far more readily than the car in front. At the moment it's paying off in lap time though. He was a full 0.2 of a second quicker through the first sector, was Heur.
Next battle to be fought is Alex Mortimer, now fighting a defensive battle with Michele Rougelot for 6th position. Spirit of Race car catching grey market Norma.
Yeah, and now certainly shaping up the number 20 car for a potential overtake. Rougelot is close enough. He's carrying a little bit more forward momentum as well, but clamping his car to the right-hand side of the track, therefore in full defensive mode. It's Mortimer, but it doesn't matter to Michele Rougelot. He's gone round the outside. However, he's run wide, and I reckon Mortimer might be able to pick him back off again. He can.
Great stuff from Alex.
So Rougelot braked just a little bit too late, having gone right round the outside of the Grain Market car. And Mortimer didn't lose his head, thought, well, you're never going to make the corner at that sort of speed and angle, and got the place back again. Tremendous to watch. Are we going to see a similar thing here from Laurence Heur, who's late on the brakes, but surely Noble's going to cut across his bows, which is exactly what he does, and Colin Noble stays in second position. We are talking tenths of seconds, though, here, and Laurence Heur showing his intent there.
Just watching the way this is beginning to swing. And all of a sudden, Duncan Tappy is starting not to take hundredths out, but tenths. There's still 13 minutes to go. There is time for this to become a 3-car battle. And at that point, the game for one of these three changes completely. And that's Laurence Heur.
Remember, was leading the race, Laurence Heur's car, before being caught for spinning the wheels in the pit stop and having to come down the pit lane to serve a drive-through penalty. Rougelot's going to have another stab at this now towards the end of this lap. Just 89 thousandths of a second separate them at the split, 2/3 of the way around the lap. And what about Rougelot's run up the hill towards the bus stop chicane? Mortimer not going to defend, although he's going to try and cut back again to get the better exit. I think both of them are really enjoying this, but Michele Rougelot should just about cement that place now. Took him 2 separate attempts, and assuming Alex Mortimer hasn't got anything for him on the brakes into La Source, that will be the place bagged for the Italian driver, and that's 6th position.
Black and white warning flag for Maurizio Mediani, 3rd at the moment in GT3, 16th overall for abuse of track limits. It's way wide from Laurence Heur, way wide. We did say that might lead to a slight mistake. What that's going to mean is he drops back a bit, and he's also going to have very dusty tyres Needs to be very careful indeed the next couple of corners. That will not have helped anybody, but Colin Noble, for that matter, for Duncan Tappy, under 5 seconds back now from Laurens Heur.
And just 12 minutes left on the clock before this race comes to a close. The shadows are gently lengthening here at Spa. Fantastic sunset here in Belgium last night. I'm sure we're going to be treated to a similar one this evening as well, after a cracking day's racing and qualifying for the ELMS cars earlier on today. Support categories this weekend as well, all free to get into and enjoy this racing late on into the evening. And although it's not tight for the overall lead, it certainly is for second and third. And Carl Bol-Bessasson takes a little bit of a look at the inside of Adrien Trouillet that time into Le Combe corner. So Trouillet is in a sandwich here because he's got Garrett Grist up ahead of him as well. This is the 9th, 10th and 11th places.
Yep, absolutely right. Garrett Grist looking to do what he can to defend his position. Recovering Trouillet, number 9 after penalty. And then the CD Sport Norma.
There was a big squirm there for Adrien Trouillet, so I think he's going to be struggling for outright speed coming through Speaker's corner. Wasn't necessarily making him a sitting duck though for Carl Bol-Bessasson behind and the CD Sport car, but Bol-Bessasson getting closer, and this is going to give Garrett Grist a little bit of light relief into Fagnet corner. The right and the left, very tricky as it gets more and more dusty throughout the 2 hours. Still 1.2 seconds between Pacini and Ross Gunn. It's like I'm looking at a frozen timing screen. We actually were earlier on today, but timing is working now. And thanks to all at Alcamel for solving that little glitch earlier on in the day. 0.7 of a second the margin between Colin Noble and Laurens Heur, with Duncan Tappy a bit closer this time. 4.1 seconds now, the gap between him and the car in front. It was 5 and a bit.
Most of that gain came with that run wide from Laurens Heur at Pouan. Let's wait to see just exactly what Duncan can do in the closing minutes of this race. Under 10 minutes to go. This is the kind of danger zone in the recent history of this race. Always seems to be something, literal or metaphoric, spanner thrown in the works.
0.7 of a second means some work to be done for Laurens Heur. We're also paying close attention to the fight between Garrett Grist for United Autosports, Adrien Trouillet for Graf, Carl Bol-Bessasson for CD Sports. They are nose to tail, 9th, 10th and 11th, and then Alexander Taukanitsa just slipping away from this trio. That car of Taukanitsa Senior, I beg your pardon, is in 12th position, the number 90 car, and in turn ahead of the GT3 fight. Are they going to try and go 3 abreast here? That would not be a good idea on the run up the Kemmel Straight, but it will be a place gained both for Adrien Trouillet and Carl Bol-Bessasson, who go round the outside of Garrett Grist. Now that might be part and parcel, just the fact that Normas generally are quicker than the Ligier down the straight. Garrett Grist tried his level best, but it's 2 places lost in the end for the Canadian driver at the end of the Kemmel Straight.
Meantime, back in the GT battle, still hanging on in there, seeing whether or not an error can be forced. But Ross Gunn just dropping back a little here, 1.3 seconds back. Is he just biding his time for another punt at this, or has he used the best of the Michelins at each corner of the Aston Martin?
There's also a slight concern about engine temperature, because you're in the hot air of that Ferrari lap after lap after lap, and sometimes you see cars just drop away so that they can breathe. But maybe Ross has just tried absolutely every trick in the book, realising that Giacomo Pacini's not going to make a mistake, and perhaps this is the time in the race where he's going to settle for second. We'll wait and see, because there are still 8 minutes to go, or just less than 8 minutes to go. The 71 Ferrari looking a little slow through shot there, but I think that's just because it's up against an LMP3 competition.
Dangerous moment here for Colin Noble, because that's backed him back up into Laurens Heur. And Heur all over the rear now of the Nielsen car. Didn't need second bidding, did he?
Well, Laurens Heur spotted the opportunity. Everything was a little cramped behind the number 71 Ferrari for a few corners. And yes, Colin Noble had to use all his experience to know which side of the Ferrari to go, and also not allow the door to be open to Laurens Heur. Clever driving, heads-up driving from the two of them. And the gap closed to 0.3 of a second. It's still about the same as they start the next lap.
Keeping an eye on the sector times in the GT class. I think at the moment at least, what's done is just dropping back a tiny amount from the Kessel car. And in similar vein, being right under the rear wing of the Nielsen racing car. Lawrence Hurt has dropped a couple of car lengths. So side by side now, the Graf car and the CD Sports.
And it stays the same order, so Trouillet still ahead of Bob Bussasson is, well, last time through the splits it was actually Bob Bussasson just ahead, but I don't think they actually ever ran in that order properly.
I think it was through the timing beam side by side along the Kemmel Straight.
Yes, and it's still Trouillet ahead, but remember these two cars in this order were able to get by Garrett Grist a lap, possibly 2 laps ago. And it was definitely the Graf car ahead at the time, but Bob Bussasson carrying some good speed for CD Sports, who are the Spanish outfit. Another Norma M30 for those drivers. Jacques Wolf was a relatively early stopper, I seem to remember, but again, no doubt helped out by the safety car, closing the field up. 5 3/4 minutes to go, and Colin Noble, having had to deal with the latest bout of pressure from Lawrence Hurt, has managed to fend him off again, and now the gap's up to nearly 0.9 of a second.
Great defensive drive here from Noble, not easy.
They are amazingly also catching Nicolas Schatz steadily. It's not going to be enough come the end, but that was an 11-second margin at the start of the full course yellow, and it's now down to 7 and a bit seconds.
Tappy, by the way, is just around 3 seconds back now from this pair. Well, that pair rather, not this pair. Nervy times down in the pit lane.
Yeah, particularly for Graf. It's 5.8 seconds now, so maybe there is a slight concern about the speed of Nicolas Schatz towards the end of this race.
What did we say about the closing minutes of these races just 2 hours ago?
Well, Adrian Schiller and Nicolas Schatz know how to win a 55-minute race. They were victorious on Thursday of Le Mans week earlier on this year.
But these are the 2 class leaders.
Together on track, yeah.
That is the 39 car. Maybe that's what was delaying the 39 car, was dealing with the GT class leaders. It's now cleared the Kessel car. We could see on the start-finish straight in a row, 1-2 in GT, 1-2-3-4 in LMP3 on the same piece of real estate.
So this would be, if they can do it, a first victory for Graf in the 39 car for the regular 2-hour races. As I say, they were victorious in the first Le Mans race during the build-up to the 24 hours earlier on in the year in June.
It's a key moment. This is where we see whether or not there is an issue around pace for that 39 car. As they clear the next timing sector, I suspect there isn't. Well, there is, but not for the reason we thought, but because the 2 closing cars are putting in fastest sectors of the race. Briefly went to Colin Noble, went immediately to Lawrence Hurt, and barely any different is Duncan Tappy. Top 4 now separated by under 10 seconds, but with the battling pair for second position now having to deal with the 2 GT cars that the leader, the 39 car, has already got by. Lawrence Hurt is closing again here. He's going to be looking for the opportunity if he can possibly get it. This is a moment for Colin Noble to pick his moment to get by the Aston Martin. Ross Gunn sees them coming. Hurt aggressive again in attack.
Yes.
Again though, Colin Noble absolutely unflappable.
Did very, very well there to not only get the place on the Aston Martin, but also keep his car wide enough into the Fagna corner to fend off Lawrence Hurt, who jinked to the right at the very last minute, but Colin Noble read it perfectly.
And he's actually gained advantage there. Yeah. He's actually gained a car length or so.
Give me another black and white flag for Mick Matt for abuse of track limits.
He's going to have to watch himself here.
That's the second one at least.
He's not going to lose places with a drive-through at this stage.
No. And actually now running in 6th position, so it's going to be slightly better points than when I previously calculated it. So back to the abacus I will go, and that will be for 6th place, 8 points, won't it? So yeah, bring the gap down again, but we've still crucially got the Kessel racing car winning the race. So we're looking at something like a 9-point advantage for Piccini and Pianazzola to head to Portugal in just over a month's time.
It effectively means that the Luzic racing car has got to win and has got to hope that something befalls the number 8 car that doesn't finish second.
Yeah, because that's only 7 points.
Because a win and pole position is not enough.
Yeah, well, even if the Ferrari finished, the Laverne and Mack Ferrari won the race, and then Piccini and Pianazzola finished in 3rd position, that wouldn't be enough unless Laverne and Mack were able to get pole in Portugal.
All of a sudden, by the way, that was a slow lap for Duncan Tappy in the 220s. That's a good 3 seconds slower than he's been lately.
Car going way off the track there. Now, was that a car that the Graf machine had just lapped? Yeah, I think it was a CD Sport car, actually, missing the apex at Pouhon. Thankfully not finding anything solid, running so far wide across the runoff area into the tyre wall. So
final minute before time is up.
And the race leader is, I think, close enough to force an extra lap out of this towards the finish line, because the race leader just approaching Fagna corner now. So he's got the whole of the final sector to do, but that for an LMP3 car only takes about 35 seconds. And if there are still 35 seconds, it's going to be tight this actually. As it crosses the split, there are 35 seconds on the clock. So this is going to be very tight. And with 6 seconds to go, if Graf are canny about this, they will get in touch with Nicolas Schatz to say, just feather the throttle through Blanchimont. You only need to gain something like half a second, or lose half a second, should I say. And this will be the finish of the race. Had to deal with the Porsche. That will have cost it a bit of time as well. And if this final this sector can take 36 or 37 seconds, no trouble at all for Nicolas Schatz. 4 seconds, 3, 2. The checkered flag's going to be shown now. This is the end of the race. It's very tight indeed on the clock. But Nicolas Schatz driving an exemplary finish, well, exemplary stint, let's face it, and ably backed up as well by his teammate at Graf, Adrian Schiller. A full round of applause down at the French squad, quite rightly so. Colin Noble falling short by just 4.8 seconds, but crucially for Colin, he stayed ahead of Lance Rowe in the DKR Engineering Norma.
Duncan Tappy does come home 4th, and the speed was rapidly dropping off from that London racing car. 220 and 222 for the last two laps. In the GT class, it was indeed Giacomo Piccini bringing home the number 8 car, the Kessel Racing car, to take the win. Ross Gunn with Andrew Howard in the 99 Beechdean MR car claimed a 2nd position finish. We'll be delighted with that. In the spirit of race 51, Christoph Ulrich with a faultless performance in the first half of the race. Maurizio Mediani from 3rd position, and critically, championship leader comes home better than 6th.
And the winning margin in GT3 was 1.2 seconds. That's basically the margin that remained for about the last 45 minutes of the race. It did vary from lap to lap, but generally speaking, Ross Gunn just couldn't make any further impression on Giacomo Piccini, who was unflappable throughout that final stint. Congratulations to he and Sergio Pianazzola. They take the maximum 25 points, but it's a good points haul for Ross Gunn and for his teammate Andrew Howard, who we heard from a little earlier on down in the JMW Motorsport pits. But of course the Beechdean AMR crew are the ones that get the 18 for 2nd position. Well done to Nicolas Schatz. Very happy with his afternoon's performance. He'll be joined in just a second by Adrian Schiller, his teammate, and it'll be the French national anthem that you will hear on the top step of the podium, at least in the LMP3 category. Very happy indeed are the Kessel Racing duo, Pianazzola and Giacomo Piccini. And Piccini made to work today. He will have felt that, I'm sure, because he could not afford to make a single error in that final stint. And Andrea Piccini, sadly, not getting to the finish because of power steering failure for car number 60.
But good to still some joy in his heart for his brother. And the Piccini brothers, very much a part of this Kessel Racing revival. And coming into ACO Wheels racing over the last couple of years, and lots more of these days, I think, to come. But great stuff, great scenes, still bright sunshine to greet the guys to the podium. It's always a nice way to finish your racing day. But Graf from Nielsen, from DKR, the 1, 2, 3, Kessel from Beechstein AMR from Spirit of Race in GT3.
And so much to that narrative throughout the course of the 2 hours. We did warn you that that would be the case, and of course with the championship leaders only able to make third position in LMP3, and far from the ideal race for the 71 crew. They do score points, but nothing like the 25 that the number 8 Ferrari has managed to do. Let's hear from the Graf duo though with Charlie.
Well, guys, congratulations. I can see how happy you are taking your second win of the season.
Yes, I'm very happy because these races are very strong. So the car, Mr. O, etc. are very fast. So I did my maximum in the Norma, and it's a big pleasure. And when we win with Adrien, it's very cool. Super.
Enjoy celebrating.
Yes, for sure.
So congratulations to Nicolas Schatz, Adrian Schiller, the man of very few words indeed. I think he wanted to have a quick say, but he's going to be rushed to the podium. And now we concentrate on the winners in GT3 with photographs with the two gentlemen that raced or were here to race the 60 car. Sadly, we only saw a stint from from Andrea Piccini, and we did not see anything from Claudio Schiavoni, sadly. But Schiavoni will be back in Portugal, I'm sure. The winning margin then in LMP3, 4.8 seconds for the number 39 Graf car from Nielsen Racing. Colin Noble pushed all the way to the finish by Laurence Heur for DKR Engineering, still scoring third place points, so it's 15 to the number 3 crew. Lannon Racing coming back after massive issues at Barcelona, a huge crash for Mikey Benham. An eventful race for Mikey Benham, I think it's fair to say, but Duncan Tappy gets the car home in 4th position. Now we can get some reaction from Kessel Racing, from Sergio Pianazzola and Giacomo Piccini.
Congratulations, guys, a third win of the season. It was quite a defensive race at the end.
Yeah, it was tough. You know, normally my teammate does the biggest part of the job and give me the car with a lot of advantage, but due to the penalization and the safety car, the race was tough. The Aston had an amazing pace, Gunn was really pushing, but I managed to be concentrate. The car was fantastic. Honestly, the car was really great. The team, everyone did an amazing job, so I'm pretty happy. Probably the best win we've had this year.
And more valuable championship points.
Definitely. That's the most important thing.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
I think it's probably the victory that means the most because they had to work the hardest for it. And Pianazzola, if anything, were the easier of the two stints. Giacomo Piccini with a bit of sweat on the brow, certainly. It's a warm evening here at Spa-Francorchamps and has been a cracking weekend so far. Another day to come for the ELMS cars, of course, that are still in the garage. So just before 4 o'clock, we got the 5th round of the Michelin Le Mans Cup underway, and the fireworks started very early indeed. To the left of your picture, a schmozzle, it's fair to say, between Jim Maguire and the Fabien Laverne-driven Ferrari. The Kia racing car was involved, along with the 74 of Maurice Smith that was left in the middle of the road as well. Jim Maguire leaving the scene somewhat red-faced, had to take a drive-through for his part in that, and Fabien Laverne all of a sudden realising his front left tyre was down as a result, needing to make a pit stop after just one racing lap was completed. Good little move there from Andrea Piccini on Christoph Ulrich earlier on in the piece, but the power steering would fail on that car later on. 25, Mikey Benham, that was the second of a few incidents that he had to deal with, facing the concrete at the exit of La Source. The two Graf Normas switched places with the 39 car, the eventual winner of course, gifting that place on that occasion to Eric Truier, who started like a man possessed, and then Eric de Donker with a move up the inside of Maritiotto didn't quite come off at Campus Corner. Later on, about 50 minutes into the race, the 74 car would hit drama. This was related to that get-together at La Source on the first lap, and we reckon part of the rear right bullet, the legality panel, exploded because of tyre rub. Kia Racing's machine would grind to a halt at turn 9, and that needed to be recovered during a full course yellow. Nice little overtake for Alex Mortimer on Garrett Griss, the 23 car, and the Grey Market Racing machine would come further back up the order as well after it was well driven by Mark Crader in the early stages. This was the moment where the DKR engineering car had to serve a drive-through, or a stop-go in fact, because of the wheels spinning during its previous pit stop. It fed back into the mixture in third position, which is where it would finish. But the race winner, Nicolas Schatz, timing his run to the line perfectly. There was a chance that the checkered flag wouldn't be shown, but then with just a second left on the clock, he came out of the bus stop chicane and cemented the race victory. Also, this was the moment where the GT3s crossed the line, and it was Giacomo Puccini together with Sergio Pianezzola who take another victory for Kessel Racing ahead of Beechdean AMR. And the podium presentation is now being prepared. Bottles of champagne ready to be presented.
The only good bit it was actually pretty good at was the right out
to Colin Noble and to Tony Wells. Colin deep in conversation now with Tony.
Yeah, like you just couldn't put it locking. Yeah. I think we need to do something about that for tomorrow.
Possibly talking about the lack of grip out there, or indeed just their particular chosen setup, which can be adjusted for tomorrow, because these two gentlemen will take part in the European Le Mans Series race. A 4-hour affair tomorrow, which is due for a 12:30 start. And the potential for a little bit of changeable weather as well around Spa-Francorchamps. It wouldn't be a weekend at Spa if we didn't have a bit of precipitation, let's face it. 2 glorious days so far. I think it was pretty good for Tester earlier on in the week as well. Tony Wells quickly over to the Graf duo of Nicolas Schatz and Adrian Schiller to offer his congratulations as well. But it is a Norma top 3, tellingly. The M30, a very strong car to have this weekend in Spa. Best Ligiers finishing 5th and 6th places in the hands of Dino Lenardi for Motorsport 98 and Michele Rugolo for Spirit of Race. Rugolo able to put in 1 or 2 late overtakes actually to make his run to the flag very entertaining indeed.
Yeah, he was pushing hard at the end. Lawrence Hurt was pushing hard at the end. It made it very entertaining. And actually what defied this race for me, unusually for a Michelin Le Mans Cup race, was some real high-quality defensive driving. We're looking at one of the men responsible for that at the moment with Colin Noble, and also we were talking to one of them a little earlier with Giacomo Puccini, fending off and soaking up the pressure from Ross Gunn, and giving the credit, wasn't he, to Ross Gunn for the pace that the Aston Martin was able to show there.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of having very different machinery, equalised courtesy of the balance of performance data, and that can be done with weight on the cars, but also to do with the amount of turbo that each of those cars is given as well, because the Ferrari, of course, these days turbocharged, as is the Aston Martin. And it's designed so that the cars can be equalised across many different types of circuit as well. Third step of the podium for the LMP3s then, Laurence Heur and Francois Kerman, and handshakes all round between those two gentlemen and Tony Wells and Colin Noble, who will take to the second step of the podium for Nielsen Racing. But a jubilant pair here for Graf, who dance their way to the top step. It's Nicolas Schatz and Adrian Schiller. Well done to the 39 squad. And we'll hear the French national anthem for the winning team in just a second. Those two, by the way, Adrian Schiller and Nicolas Schatz, coming to Spa, 4th in the championship. That could well mean they're properly up there now. They finished ahead of Duncan Tappy and Mikey Bennett, just behind Tony Wells and Colin Noble, so it closed the gap here and there. They gained ground on Tappy and Bennett, but unfortunately for them, Wells and Noble have opened up the gap a little bit. But it's going to be interesting when the points are revealed in a moment or two on the graphics slate to see how we sit with one more race to go. Gilles Duquesne is a keen observer.
Of course, the owner of the Norma project will become a Duquesne car in the Duquesne D08. That's going to be the new car in 2020. Places the Norma M30 with the new wheels, aero, safety, new engine.
Yeah, and that car was on display on the Friday of Le Mans, where an all-4 chassis could be seen, in fact, through the Dunlop curve.
In fact, not that one. That was a Norma M30. Although Duquesne are selling cars, talking to 2 or 3 teams this weekend.
So the plaque next to it read Duquesne, but it was actually a Norma on the skip. Okay, gotcha. The corks are now unleashed from the bottles, and a very warm afternoon stroke evening is now going to get a very wet afternoon and evening. As you can tell how hard these 6 gentlemen have been working over the last 2 hours, and very, very happy to release some pressure, some pent-up aggression. 99 points, François Kerman and Laurence Heur, and it's going to be a 20-point advantage then, heading to Portimao over Tony Wells and Colin Noble. Just a point back. Duncan Tappy and Mikey Benham and Adrian Schiller and Nicolas Schatz do stay 4th, but they're only 10 points, 9.5 points back from Tappy and Benham. So we've got a bit of a fight on for 3rd in the championship. Kerman and Heur need an absolute nightmare, though, to throw this one away. With 26 available and a points lead of 20 points, we have seen it happen, though.
A DNF would be a disaster.
Completely.
That's the point. It's a DNF, and it can happen.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to look at what happened at turn 1 here.
Indeed, yeah, and it doesn't take a lot to be involved in that when it's not even of your making. Portimao also has just this habit of creating a scenario which you could never have quite had the foresight to see. 20 points it is for the DKR Engineering squad over Nielsen Racing. 78 for Lannon, as I've mentioned. 68.5 for Graf. United are 5th with their 24 car on 29.5, and 2 points further back from that, the green and black DKR Engineering machine, car number 5 with 27.5 points. And it's Grain Market Racing, Racing Experience, Motorsport 98, and the other Graf car to complete the top 10. LMP3 done, and the GT3 podium has now been dressed and is ready to receive drivers. The first 2 then, finishing in 3rd position. A good stint, I thought, in the opening stages from Christoph Ulrich, and Maurizio Mediani did what was required of him, really. Never missing a beat and getting the car home in 3rd position, car 51. 2nd place goes the way of Beechdean AMR, Andrew Howard, who we heard from earlier on, and Ross Gunn standing now to Andrew's left. But it's another victory for Giacomo Piccini and Sergio Pianazzola. Pianazzola with a punch to the air there. Very happy indeed to extend the points gap, or actually swing the pendulum from Lucid Racing back in the favour of Kessel Racing. Let's hear the national anthem of the winning team. National anthem of Switzerland for Kessel Racing, and big smiles all around just before the trophies and the bottles of champagne are presented.
Astonishing how often we hear the Swiss national anthem in international motorsport, bearing in mind their history with international racing.
Indeed so. No, but Switzerland well represented on both grids actually this weekend, Michelin Le Mans Cup and ELMS.
A race well fought, that one in GT.
I think Beechdean could give a great deal more, and when you get to the drivers of the calibre of Giacomo Piccini and Ross Gunn, there's just literally nothing between them. I mean, 1.2 seconds at the start of their stints, stayed at 1.2 seconds to the finish.
Which is the way it should be.
Indeed.
Actually.
Yeah, between 2 very radically different cars, one front engine, 4-litre twin turbocharged, the other close to the same CC, but mid-engine, so the weight dispersal is completely different on a Ferrari. But Piccini not really needing to put the elbows out too excessively. He just had the measure of Ross Gunn's pace, despite Ross's every effort. But this has spiced up the championship because the championship leaders coming here to Spa only finishing in 6th position. They'll get 8 points for that, but it's the full 25 to Pacini and Pianezzola. So it is going to be a 9-point advantage now in the favour of Kessel Racing. Back to the Laverne and Mikkel Mack duo from Lusick, and then Andrew Howard and Ross Gunn, because of that second place finish, slot into 3rd now in the championship.
But crucially, only the top 2 crews can now win this championship.
Yeah.
That's the major change beyond the switch in leadership, is that the chasing teams, which could mathematically have done it, because one of those top 2 teams has scored heavily and the other one scored, it means that now just the Kessel Racing number 8 crew or the 71 Lusic Racing crew can take this title. And remember, with it, a Le Mans place.
Yeah, really, those down in the sort of mid-40s points-wise coming here wanted a non-finish from both the 71 and the 8 to ensure that they could be involved in a championship battle in Portugal. As we thought, that's not going to be the case. A 2-horse race then, heading to the Algarve at the end of October. And in a moment or two, the next lot of graphics will give us the rundown for the teams, which isn't radically different, let's face it, from the drivers either, but it does tend to neaten things up. Here we go, 105 points then for Kessel Racing. They are on the verge of defending their title, having taken that in 2018, and another chance to go to Le Mans in 2020. Lusick Racing, though, will be all out to try and beat them to the flag. Beechstein slotting into 3rd, as I say, ahead of Spirit of Race, who finished 3rd in this race. They're on now 59 points. The SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes 51, and the Ebby Motors Porsche, the car that ground to a halt in qualifying earlier on today, 6th place with 39 points.
Now what that means is, even with a pole and a win for Lusic Racing in Portimao, 2nd place will be enough for Kessel Racing.
Yes, it'll be tight, possibly one of the closest finishes we will have had if that set of results comes true. But yeah, Lusick Racing, maybe because of all the hard work they did in the early part of the season, you could say deserve it. But it's not about how early you get the points in, it's just getting enough of them. Unless it goes to count back and the points are that similar, then it really will go down to race wins and how early in the season you might have scored that race win, or that 2nd place, or that 4th place. One thing's for sure, you'll want to be around in about 5 weeks' time as we head to the Algarve International Circuit for the final event of the year for the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Round 6 of the championship, with both the LMP3 and the GT3 trophies in the balance. A cracking afternoon's racing, I thought, and that sets the scene nicely for the European Le Mans Series, which will take place here tomorrow at 12:30 through till 4:30. There are potentially championships that could be wrapped up tomorrow here with ELMS, or will it extend to Portugal? So this 2-hour race then started with a little bit of carnage, I'm afraid to say, with LMP3s and the Ferrari of Fabien Laverne getting hooked up together as that natural pinch point. You turn right at La Source, that very tight right-hander which has been here since Spa came into being, and cars littering the circuit, not least the 71 Fabien Laverne Ferrari, which had to limp its way through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. They were the championship leaders, and also Jim Maguire, judged to be at fault for much of that, had to take a drive-through penalty. Early jostling for position between Andrea Pacini and Christoph Ulrich. Of course, Kessel deciding to put their gun driver in for the first stint. That was a moment for Mikey Benham after he just caught the back of Marcello Maritiotto's DKR LMP3. The 2 Graf cars switched positions. This was Eric Trouillet getting ahead of the eventual race winner, but the courtesy given there by Adrian Schiller at the time. Up the inside, that didn't quite work for Eric de Donker on the inside of Marcello Maritiotto again, and a half spin for the Motorsport 98 car. This a dramatic moment where shards of carbon fibre were left across the track at the end of the Kemmel Straight after parts of the bodywork on the number 74 car effectively exploded after so much tyre rub, and that was all as a result of the carnage at the first corner on the opening lap. Kio Racing's race would end here at Speaker's Corner for Johan Jokinen early on in his stint, and a full course yellow had to be brought out to recover that car. Neat little overtake there for the Grain Market Racing machine at the end of the Kemmel Straight. A stop-go for DKR because of wheels spinning during their pit stop. They would feed back in right behind Colin Noble's number 7 Nielsen Racing entry, the number 2 car, I beg your pardon. So that car from the lead, the orange and black car, from the lead back down to 3rd position where it would eventually finish. But there was no stopping Nicolas Schatz and Adrian Schiller for his opening stint as well. The checkered flag came out just in time for the 2 French drivers and the all-French Graft squad to take a first victory since Le Mans, but crucially their first 2-hour victory of the year. And victory in GT3 going the way of Kessel Racing, Sergio Pianazzola and Giacomo Puccini. So that draws to a close our first event, our first long distance race of the weekend. There is one more event to look forward to. That's the European Le Mans Series, but it certainly sets things up very nicely with one race to go in the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
It most certainly does. Great 2 hours of racing this afternoon, 4 hours to come tomorrow. Will we get some weather? We'll wait and see. What we're going to have is a packed grid of prototypes and GT cars, and the ELMS sets once again, Johnny, secure its spot amongst the best endurance racing on the planet right now.
Loads of fans out on the grid at the start of this, stayed till the end to enjoy relentless action from the Michelin Le Mans Cup. We could well have seen 1 or 2 stars of the future in the ELMS and maybe into the Le Mans 24 hours in a few years' time as well. But Michelin Le Mans Cup continues to go from strength to strength. We hope you enjoyed the last 2 hours. My thanks to Graham Goodwin of dailysportscar.com. From Johnny Palmer, be sure to join us tomorrow for the ELMS. Bye for now.